Hello once again, and welcome back to the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we get the site staff together to talk about our favorite genre of video games. Once again, we've got quite a crowd here today. We're going to try to manage the number of people present on this cast as best as we can. My name is Brian Vitale, and let me go through who's all with me today. We have Josh Torres.
Free TGS week, get excited.
We have Jess Reyes.
Yeah.
We have Adam Vitale.
Hello.
James Galizio.
Y'all ready to hear about patch notes?
Chow Min Woo.
Yes.
Yes. And joining us for the first time in a long time, we've got Cullen Black.
Hi. Oh no, I'm Sakata.
It's good to have you back. But so a lot of times when we have this podcast, we try to limit it to like 6 people, but I was too mean to, or I was going to be too nice to like try to kick one off. So we're going to go with 7 and see how that works out.
Usually you're too mean. Today you decided to be nice.
Yeah, I am being gentle today. I don't want to step on anyone's toes. But Josh has it right. This is basically kind of like we're in pre-TGS mode. Obviously, last week we had the very long discussion about the recently released Tales of Arise, which I assume many of us are still playing through. This week doesn't have any really big headline except for kind of the first inklings of what we might see at TGS, and a couple other like features that have gone up on the site, some announcements of dates and delays. So some ticky-tack stuff, kind of just, looking forward to what we are anticipating for the upcoming weeks. Tokyo Game Show is from, I believe, September 30th to October 2nd or 3rd. So about a week and a half away or so, 2 weeks away. We're starting to just now get details about what we might see there. But we did have one major release that we want to talk about that also has a review up on the site. And for that, I'm going to hand it over to Josh Torres to talk about Lost Judgment. So, Josh, I know that you have been working away at this for a while now, and now you're finally free to talk about it. So, Lost Judgment, just take it away.
It's weird because like this game's like not technically out yet, even as early access. They have that whole, if you buy this expensive edition, go play like 5 days early or something. The new Sega classic.
Yeah.
Lost Judgment obviously is the sequel to Judgment that came out, 2018, 2019 or something. It's the Yakuza series spin-off featuring Takayuki Yagami. So he's the detective from Kamurocho. And a lot of people really like Judgment. Like some people will go to say, hey, that Judgment was my favorite Yakuza game and whatnot. And I totally get it. Like Judgment is was such a cool game at its time. It was just different enough from Yakuza. That's like it you didn't have to play through Yakuza 0 through Yakuza 6 and like to really get what's going on. And I know a lot of people started Yakuza 7 as well because they switched up to a turn-based battle system, and that's cool. And then I know a number of people that from there went backwards and said, okay, since I like this so much, I want to go play through the other games. And that's all good and well. So Lost Judgment takes place about 3 years after the first game. So chronologically speaking, in universe, it takes place after Like a Dragon. So whatever, it takes into account what happens on Like a Dragon. I won't get into what happens on Like a Dragon here, obviously, for people who haven't played it yet. But just keep in mind that as events unfold in Lost Judgment, there will be some considerations that were established in Like a Dragon. It's not like super important, just like minor plot details that might be hard to
So it's
follow.
not like a sequel to Like a Dragon, just sort of set in that period.
Do I have to play Yakuza 0 through 7 to play Lost Judgment?
No. You don't have to. Go for it.
Oh no, I was going to say in that line of thought. So this might be an obvious answer. So do you have to play the original to enjoy Lost Judgment?
So no, technically you don't, because the main story, like the story's trying to tell, is very standalone from the first one. But they're like, if you want to know like who these characters are and their backgrounds and like the relationships, like because there'll be like people who you befriended in the first game, the main narrative wise, who are like now just part of your group.
Does it do a Yakuza 6 where there's a big beach mind hallway where everybody recaps every other game because they're like, wow,
No.
Yakuza 0 kind of blew up in the West, huh?
No, it doesn't have that, but it does have like brief flashback like stills of like, oh, it's this guy, he helped me out with this, when they're introducing him, or like even for like this, like there are like side cases still, and a good chunk of those side cases are kind of like they have like the same characters that you helped out in the first Judgment, and then it'll do like a flashback
I
still, like,
didn't do
oh,
the
I
side
remember,
cases.
yeah, Yagami like, oh, I remember this guy, he helped me out fight off this person in the sewer, in the first game and whatnot. So it's like very brief. It's not like, oh no, I don't have this connection to this person. It's like, you see them, it's like, oh cool, that person's back. Like I think in the main narrative of the first game, like you remember like the old guru guy who made the extract things that you can use in combat. Like he has like
I
that
love
melting
those.
hot
I
cauldron.
just used
Yeah.
the DLC ones that came with the PS5 version, and then I killed everything in the later half of the game because I got bored with the combat. So speaking of that, how's the combat, Josh?
The combat is way, 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 way better in
thank
this
God.
one. Yeah. So before I guess before I jump into combat, let me just go set the stage for like where we are in this game. So for people who played Like a Dragon, you're the majority of your time in Lost Judgment is now in Yokohama, like in Like a Dragon. You can explore Yokohama now without having to be tied to a turn-based battle system. You'll get into those seamless brawls that the Yakuza series, always had been until like a Dragon. So like Yokohama is still very big, and now you have like this whole new area to explore in Yokohama, like this Serio High School, because the story is basically set up that Yagami and Kaito, his partner, are called by Tsukumo and Sugiura from the first game because they made a new detective agency in Yokohama, and they're like, "Hey, we have this. We're still starting out, and we have like this big case. Can you come out and help us?" And then they're like, "Okay, yeah, we can go take a vacation from Kamurocho for a while. It's in good hands." So they go there, and then the very first thing that you basically do is investigate like a bullying case at Serio High School, and this becomes a very, very big recurring theme throughout the entire game. Like people who depending on your life experiences, this could be a very difficult game to play like in long bursts, or in long sessions and whatnot. And because like it's so like focused on like the direct and indirect effects of bullying, and like to all the people involved in such an incident, and how do you address it, because bullying is one of those things that has like no easy answer. Like because the circumstances that lead up to bullying, how it's being bullied, and like even if it's like bullying comes in all sorts of forms. It doesn't have to be like, oh, there's these rowdy high school students that are like picking on this person daily for whatever reason. Like bullying comes in the form of like, say, just you being at work and you have like a boss that's like putting pressure on you to like meet a deadline and like kind of pushing you towards that, and that in a way is like a form of bullying depending on how they convey that towards you and whatnot. So it's like bullying is not just like one sort of like instance or isolated incident. It's like, okay, there are definitely more things at play here, and that's a recurring theme throughout the game. So for people like who are who are maybe suffering that or have suffered that before, like be aware, take care. Obviously, like this is an enjoyable game, but like there are also like there are other Yakuza games that are heavy, and somehow this game like
It's the
heavier
heaviest.
than most. Yeah.
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 But, I mean, we've been talking about this in our own conversations, but I think it's really neat how in the marketing for the last couple months, they've been basically like starting with like content warnings for people, because like a lot of people know what Yakuza is, and like if people hear, oh, there's a new Yakuza game coming out, and they just want to go see what Lost Judgment is, and they're hit with some of the stuff they've shown literally in the very first like trailer, like with the dead body, it's like how much money did you put into making this dead body look like that?
Yeah, it makes you think about like how the stories that came out like a few years ago of things at NetherRealm Studios, and like how much time they put like making the fatalities in that game. It's like the toll it takes to go to do that behind the scenes. It's tough stuff. So I can only imagine like how the development of this game went and what sort of work had to be done. So hopefully it was okay. I can't speak to that, obviously.
Oh yeah, and I wasn't trying to
yeah.
like start
Yeah.
a thing about
Yeah.
that,
Oh, yeah,
but it
for
was
sure.
like this game looks a lot more just like serious and heavier than most Yakuza games. So like having said that though, because I'm not going to make you talk about story because I don't think anyone wants to hear about story,
Right.
even if you could.
Yeah. I think the one thing I'll tell people off the front, depending on what they've read on the internet about this game over the past week, because to me, I already foresee that there's gonna be a lot of conflicting feelings about this game, yeah, and it'll all vary to person, depending on their life experiences and whatnot. Like for a good chunk of the game, like I was like, I really wonder how they'll nail this, because like even I feel uncomfortable about like the way they're presenting stuff, and I imagine a lot of people will feel the same way. And it's like I recommend people to kind of see how it plays out in the context of the game, and reach your own conclusion whether you think they were successful or not in trying to send their grand message. That's all I can really say without spoiling anything. But there are definitely things and revelations and developments throughout the story. You're like, oh, I don't know, and I'm like, my recommendation would be just like play through it. They'll address it and touch upon it and try to give their own explanation about like why things came out why things are the way they are.
It wouldn't be a RGG game if it didn't kind of butcher some of what it was trying to do. Like, I love Yakuza 7. It is my favorite game in the series. But there is a lot of things in that game that's like, what?
Yeah.
Why are you doing it like this?
Yeah, and that's all. It's definitely, but it's definitely one of those things that people will like tilt their head like, huh, okay. And I have to say, it's like just if you're playing it, play through it till the ending and see, if it works for you or not. And if you're just watching like a let's play or a streamer, like I always encourage people at least try to get the context of like the entire situation, because this is a very like the main narrative of this game is very dialogue heavy, and it's very like paying attention to like what's going on and thinking about all the webs and connections and like and the motivations of like why people are doing what they're doing and whatnot. It's like I mentioned in my review, it by the second half it does get like a tad messy to like reaching that finale, but I think the finale, like the final scenes of that game, like really hit home that there's like no easy right, no easy wrong, and like no easy answers in general about like what's actually going on, and I'm really interested to see how people.
I'm looking forward to it. I did not qualify for a pre-release code. I'm trying to see if I can get one for my channel to make a video on it. But
just pre-order the digital deluxe edition or whatever.
Look. Unfortunately, if it comes down to it, I'm just gonna do that because I'm not gonna let Twitter spoil me on this. And I think that's the market that Sega is trying to hit. Which I respect the hustle. Don't get me wrong, but for a game like this, I'm like, okay, I don't want to get spoiled on this.
Yeah,
but also, there's like. Weirdly enough, and I feel like they haven't talked about this enough, there's a whole Kaito expansion that's coming out, like late next year?
Like spring of next year or something like that?
Yeah.
I forgot. Yeah, so I'm there are definitely segments of the story, I'm wondering if they're gonna like try to slot this like story content in, or is it after the event? I wonder. It makes me really curious, like if that expansion is gonna be like, oh, what was he doing at this time, or is it like set after the events?
I hope it's more
Fantasy 15 style.
Yeah,
I don't know why I thought about that.
Where they kind of just grabbed it.
I was actually thinking of Final Fantasy 15, the way that Josh described that, where it's like, here's what Gladio was doing, and in my opinion, the Final Fantasy 15 little DLCs are average to bad. Like I think Promptos is okay, and the other two are bad.
I like Promptos, and I don't care for the other ones.
Yeah, so I don't want to get too off tangent, but I just want to say Adam blurted that out while I was thinking about it. So you talk about how like Lost Judgment's story is kind of heavy and deep, and talks about like bullying and gaslighting and the different.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot more. It's definitely more than that. But I don't want to. I'm doing my best not to spoil that experience for people, because there are definitely like I want people to have like the same revelations that I had, or same type of like surprise that I did. I'm like, oh wow, I never would have thought it would have gone this direction type of deal.
Did the original Judgment have a similar sort of tonality to it, or was it more kind of, because I'm currently most of the way through a Yakuza series playthrough. I just finished, well, not just finished. A couple months ago, I finished 5, which I did not like very much. But
Mood.
I feel
Big
like
mood.
Yakuza's 3, 4, and 5, they try to play like the emotional angle, usually involving the orphanage or things like that. But usually there's too many like contrivances or silly moments or
Yume's.
or yeah, just things that kind of compromise it, where I never really feel like emotionally invested as much as I think they want me to. So I wonder if maybe does the Judgment, because if Judgment's kind of like the spiritual successor of the brawler style Yakuza game, does it play at more level where you don't have that weird conflict of, because I know like Yakuza, it's a very difficult fine line to have like the kitsch, goofy mini games and side stories, and then have kind of like this dramatic thriller in the center. And it's sometimes you pull it off in like in 0, and sometimes you don't, like in 4 or 5. So based on your description, it seems like Judgment handles it a bit better.
Well, for Judgment 1, and I'm only bringing this up because that's the only one of them I played. Maybe Josh thinks differently, but Judgment 1 is interesting. I wouldn't say Judgment 1 gets too emotional, but Judgment 1 is a surprisingly solid murder mystery story that gets on some really interesting themes on like government corruptness and all that stuff, and kind of ends justify the means. So I'm not sure how much of Judgment 2, like, is there like a carryover of those themes, Josh, or is it kind of just doing its own thing?
So for Judgment 1, it is definitely like the sort of crime drama you would see on TV. Like, you know, it's like a first season of like a crime drama, and it's sort of like that. You have a really interesting murder mystery, and like you said, it touches upon more grander themes the deeper you go into the truth of it all.
I've heard even that if you approach Judgment like a J-drama, you will enjoy it way more.
Oh yeah, I mean that even the opening is fucking baller, and that's exactly how J-drama openings are. With that, so and I think the Judgment 1 has this problem that like it makes you go, it detracts you too much sometimes, like in like the middle of the game, like where the main narrative is gonna go. Like you're gonna go back to your detective agency, but like, oh, there's like this missing kid and whatnot, like who you have to, there's like a mandatory side quest you have to do before you go arrest your agency. It's like it comes out of nowhere. It's like not really relevant to the story. It makes you like go to like too much side content at times to like, you're like, what was the purpose of this? You know,
okay.
It's like, okay.
Yeah, that is actually something I wanted to ask, and maybe you were going to get into it. But so that's my biggest problem with almost every single Yakuza game. And you reminded me, every single one has that moment where the middle kind of sucks. It's kind of real dumb and bad.
So then, let me go like address that after Brian's. Yeah. So in Lost Judgment, it's really fascinating how the beginning hours of that game goes, because the world doesn't really open up to you. Like side cases don't open up until you're about maybe 5 or so hours into it, because once you go to Serio High School, once you go to Jinsho, and Yagami is helping out his 2 buddies, like it kind of locks you to this first story arc where there's there's a really delicate topic of like this high school girl getting bullied and whatnot, and basically the chairman of that school asks you like, hey, can you like investigate my school, essentially, of like instances of like bullying? Is there like a big bullying problem around? And there's like a whole thing around that, and like it really locks you into place and focuses you on that until you reach a somewhat sort of a sustainable resolution to that, because it's not I'm not going to tell you it's like cut and dry clean. It wipes its hands and then it moves on and whatnot, because obviously bullying is not the type of problem where you can really like, okay, we solved your bullying problem, okay, next. It's like it's just not, that's not feasible and not believable. So it does its best to kind of like find a resolution to that, but it never wipes its hands clean of that fully until like later on when other things and other stuff is known to you and opens up and whatnot. So there's just like this really intimate feeling that it establishes off the get-go, where like it's setting in the tone for a recurring theme that will happen again and again and again and again in different forms. And as you're unraveling the mystery little by little, as you're connecting the dots between like, what's going on and what Yagami is doing and what the beginning of the game shows, because the beginning of the game shows like, oh, there's an unidentified corpse that was found in Yokohama. There's this, police officer that's caught for arrested for sexual battery and is now in a court hearing. And at the time of his hearing, he not only identifies that there was a corpse found in Ijincho that wasn't publicized yet. He also identifies that corpse correctly. And then there's this whole thing of like, okay, wait, if you know who that is, that kind of makes you that makes you look really, suspicious. That like, did you do it then? But then since his crime was all caught on tape, like the time and place of his crime, there's no way he could have done that if he was already here, type of deal. So it's like, so there's this whole mystery behind that. And as Yagami kind of digs into like the deeper truth of like where things are going, like things start coming together and it feels more intimate, even though it's juggling a lot at once at first. And then you really have to work through it and see, okay, this is what's going on, essentially. Does that make a little bit of sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. And then to Colin's question, the game still does have like it doesn't have like a shitty middle, but that like there's definitely portions in the middle where like you'll go back to like the Yokohama Detective Agency. It's like, oh, Yagami, there's this disturbance here. Let me go introduce this new gadget. You gotta have like a noise amplifier. Again, then you have this whole tutorial of like how you use the noise amplifier to go find this and whatnot. But the middle of it is interesting because it's an ongoing thing where you sort of have to like retrace the steps of like and make sure you have your facts in check. So for example, since this was all caught on tape, the police officer Ehara, that whole ordeal, which is established at the very beginning of the game, so this isn't spoilers. It was all caught on tape at the subway station, and then you go to the subway station with one of the Genda law firm people, and then you're investigating like, okay, where were these cameras at the time of this incident, and what are the ranges where these cameras can like cover and whatnot. So it's the middle is a lot of investigative work to get your facts in check, essentially, which makes sense. And I think it flows better than the first judgment in terms of like what you're actually doing in the middle. A lot of the middle is like stuff is happening like at the tail end of those chapters, but it's like it's a lot of investigative work and getting your facts in check, which I don't know if it'll not land for people, but for me, it's like, okay, he's actually doing like more work as a detective, more so than the first game where like things kind of spontaneously happen. You're just kind of strung along with it.
I mean, that's good though, because I really felt like Judgment's middle kind of drops that detective stuff, and or like what Yagami is doing as a detective was kind of hands off. Like
it was more like like another typical Yakuza middle game. Like it's like you could like replace Yagami for Kiryu, and like events would have like played out similarly because in the first judgment, like you're strung by this Yakuza Tojo clan family, and then you have this loose cannon in there, and you're kind of strung along because in the context of that game, Yagami was still like a crestfallen type of individual and like trying to work out like the kind of like the demons of his past and whatnot, and while at the same time he's like establishing like relationships of like both enemies and allies alike. And so a lot of it was like foundational work from which this can springboard off of, and now it's not like bound by that. It's now more so, okay, Yagami is actually doing detective work now.
That's good, because one of the things that it works in Judgment, but it is very reliant on the Yakuza at the core. Like I imagine there is still Yakuza, or like there's still like heavy crime stuff. We've seen that from trailers, but is there as much of a focus on the Yakuza as an organization like the first one had?
There is because things happen in Like a Dragon. That there are now because of the fallout of things in Like a Dragon, there now you're feeling the ripples of what happened after that. So yes, there is still a Yakuza component to it, but there's enough of of a thread where it tries to do its own stuff as well. It does have its own identity as well, and you'll feel this really hard in the first few hours where when you're doing the serial high school stuff. It's like, wow, this doesn't feel like a Yakuza game at all at the first few hours. And it's kind of, to me, it's kind of cool. It's like, okay, this could be like a potential thing that they could try to do more of, obviously in a different context, but there are definitely avenues it seems like they want to explore outside of just the Yakuza formula, narrative formula and whatnot. And I think it becomes really interesting in that respect. When it comes to combat, like we mentioned, kind of teased earlier, combat is way better. And the first one, it was still fluid because Yagavi's a more nimble person. He's not the hard hitter as Kiryu, but he's a lot more agile. Does that those wall strikes. He has these two fighting stances, one for groups and the other for more one-on-one encounters. But it was still kind of janky because whenever enemies block, your limbs would just bounce off of them, and it's like, okay, well, the flow of combat is just kind of, it is what it is in that game, and it was basic but serviceable. And Lost Judgment, it is a lot more fluid. Your attacks actually follow through instead of bounce off. You don't have a combo speed upgrade anymore because it's just max combo speed from the get-go. You never have to touch combo speed, and there's no upgradable combo speed. Everything is fast and fluid, and a lot of your options are there. Like the crane stance, with your AoE blue mode stance type of deal. That's been entirely reworked because a lot of moves kind of missed or hit at very, very weird angles with crane. This one has a lot more sweeps and has a lot more focus on okay, getting a wide spread of attacks and actually hitting what it's intended for. So has gotten a big buff and has this. If you remember in the Matrix when Neo does this jump in the air in freeze frame, he has that called the Sky Dancer. So and that's a really useful tool in Crane. Tiger is back, and a lot of the later upgrades that you might have gotten for that in the first game, it's unlocked from the get go. So you feel pretty powerful from the beginning. And one of my favorite additions to this game was the Snake Stance. That's the new combat style in here, and that's a more defensive thing. It has the parry mechanic. It's kind of like Tanimura, I think that was his name from Yakuza 4, the cop. Yeah. So he has that parry, but the parry window is a lot more wider and forgiving. So you kind of parry their attack, and then there were upgrades where you can do follow-up attacks. And the really cool thing about Snake Stance also is if a enemy has a weapon, you can just disarm them. You can grab them and then choose to disarm their weapon from a QTE.
One of the things I was really happy to hear is that the mortal wound system was gone because it was trash and awful.
Yep. Yeah.
Thank God.
Yep. A lot of returning people from the first game will be really happy to know that mortal wounds is a system where if you got hit by a certain really hard hitting attack from a boss or special enemy, it would just decrease the max HP cap you have on your character permanently unless you use the med kit or go to some shady underground doctor and pay a hefty fee to kind of get that all restored. They're just it's man, this sucks. So there are still mortal attacks in this game where bosses will go to an rage mode and then they'll use that red aura attack. But all that does is do a lot of damage to you. It won't do mortal wounds. And then on the flip side as well, if when they do those, you can actually counter them back with a mortal reversal, and then it'll basically flip that damage on them instead. So you're just doing a ton of damage to people in this game. It's crazy. So yeah, people who are going from the first game into Lost Judgment will feel the vast improvements of combat right away. Even in the demo, it feels better. You can switch fighting styles mid combo a lot easier and combo off of that if you really. And then since the stance animations for them is pretty much instantaneous now. You don't have to wait for that weird 2-second oh, I'm going into crane. He goes and then he spins around. It's okay, Yagami, come on, we need you to attack.
I am
The-
glad to
the-
hear that it because as I've been playing through, I always have to keep referencing the Yakuza games. So I haven't played either Judgment,
Yeah.
but especially for 3, 4, and 5, it does this thing where you start out and combat feels so bad until you like get halfway through like the progression trees. And I feel like action games in general, whether they're RPGs or not RPGs or quasi RPGs or not, that's a hard thing to balance because you want to have that feeling of progression in terms of getting stronger, faster, or unlocking new abilities, but you don't want it to feel like completely terrible to play for the first 5 hours. So it does.
Yeah.
It's really cool to hear that it sounds like Lost Judgment kind of finds a better balance than the first game, where
Yeah,
off the
it
bat
feels good. Yeah, it
Mhm.
feels good from the get go. Yeah, and it's just very noticeable right away. Um, let's see. In terms of like when you mentioned like progression, like skill progression, that entire like the tree for that has entirely been reworked. So each of the stances, Crane, Tiger, and Snake, had their own separate skill tree on top of like their base upgrades on like maxing out their health cap or and whatnot, or uh like trying to upgrade like the other mechanics of the game, like tailing missions and whatnot. Yeah, tailing missions are back. They're still kind of bad, but they're a little bit better. But there's it feels like there's less tailing missions in this game, and they don't last as long. I don't.
That's all I need to hear.
Yeah.
Because I'm not like they are decent for changing up your like, you know, making the game fresh, changing things up a little bit. It's just that they're bad and they take too long and there are way too many of them. So
Yeah.
all I really need are just like less and shorter.
Yeah, that's what it felt like to me after coming off of Judgment remaster, a replay of Judgment through the remaster. So I mean, it's a little bit harder though in this game because if you remember the first game when you're tailing someone, that like they have the suspicion meter that can go down, right, when you're just hiding. In this game, it has a percentage, and that percentage will not go down even if you're hiding. So
That's kind of awesome.
yeah, so it is. There's more stakes to it, but on the flip side, they give you this mechanic where you can, if they spot you or they get suspicion, you can act casually, where like you hold down triangle and like yeah, you can like be looking on your phone and whatnot, and then they'll be like, okay, then nothing's there, even though you're not in cover, like if you just like you're really in a bad spot. Um, so you can upgrade like how long that takes and whatnot. So I mean, tailing missions are still there, not as awful, but still bad. In terms of progression, if you remember. The thing that I really didn't like in the first game was like unlocking skills it felt like like accruing skill points took forever because like random encounters across the street was like, hey, take out these like 5 thugs, you get like 27 skill points. By the way, this next upgrade's like 1,000 skill points.
That was one of the worst parts where I was trying to engage with the combat system, but your skills grew at such a slow level, and by the end I was so sick of like the battles that I kind of just bullshitted all of them or ran away. So it just didn't feel very even.
So in this game, they solved that by having a battle reward system in combat where depending on what you do in combat, just like normal things you do in combat, you'll get additional skill points on top of the skill points that encounter would have made. So like if you defeat an enemy or defeat an enemy in Crane, like it'll give you those rewards, and then like if you beat an enemy like with each of the stances, you'll get additional bonus skill points on top of that. And then if you use an EX action in combat, you'll get rewarded for that. If you use a weapon attack, you'll get rewarded for that. So you're basically stacking skill point modifiers on top of like this one random encounter. And then there's a skill perk in your tree where you can basically multiply the amount of skill point rewards you get per encounter. So like my, I guess, pro tip would be getting those upgrades early because I was raking in like maybe 2,000, 3,000 skill points per encounter, in that game. And like, if you think about like how much like things cost, like in the first Judgment, it's like, like there are skill points, like the amount of skill points you use in this game is substantially more now. So like your upgrades will cost a little bit more expensive, but unlocking them is at a more consistent clip essentially. So because you're stacking these battle rewards on top of like everything else, so you're getting skill points and amassing skill points as long as you get those modifiers and whatnot. So that it solves that problem in a pretty significant way. So that's really cool. I guess the last thing I want to touch upon because I know this is going into a little bit too deep and too long is eventually Yagami serves as an outside counselor and advisor to the school. This has been revealed in the trailers, not a spoiler, but he does that for the Mystery Research Club. And you can think of the Mystery Research Club, and I really love the members of the Mystery Research Club.
When you say that, so before you describe that, I immediately think like Scooby Doo or something, Persona 4, maybe.
Yes, exactly. It's kind of like that. Man, they're a great bunch. Where you have this unifying narrative where this school has like a tremendous amount of like problem students. Like it's crazy, and then they kind of identify like, oh, there's like this there might be this mastermind behind it all, or like at least most of the ones that we see. And then so you have to infiltrate like different clubs both inside and outside the school, like different communities. So like you'll do like the dance club or the robotics club or the esports club and whatnot, and like they have their own stories, and you're trying to find like what's happening here and like what their connection is to this mastermind behind like the school's like problem students and whatnot. So you're doing the dancing mini game, you're doing the robotics club mini game, which is really cool because like for me, if you're me and like to tinker with robots and mechs in your games, robotics club is really funny because that's what the whole mini game thing is all about. Where you're just upgrading like your trio of robots to kind of work with you.
Unrelated, Josh, you should play Robotics Notes.
I should. I think I watched the show like 10 million years ago, but it wasn't that great. But I heard the game's better.
The game is way better, and the show is fine.
The show is one of the few good science adventure adaptations.
And even then, it's okay. Like, when I was writing my review, not to like side rail this, but when I was writing my review, I watched the entire show in a day, and I was like, it's fine.
That's all right. So yeah, so you're infiltrating these clubs and organizations, and it's encouraging you to basically do them to kind of feed into this mystery research club overall lying narrative and whatnot. And that's a really cool incentive because like there's just a lot of like fun mini games you can engage with. You can be part of a biker gang. The boxing mini game is so good because you're basically going through this like these fighters. There's like a lot of like people you can fight. There's like maybe like 24 of them, I want to say. And like the boxing mechanics are actually like somewhat deep, but more so it's like deep enough and also very fun. It's very fast paced. You're switching between like covering your head and your body and taking head and body shots with a jab, straight, and hook. And then like there's a separate like upgrade tree for boxing skills that like you unlock more of those skills as you fight opponents, and then you spend your money to like upgrade those. And I think part of like the DLC roadmap for this game is like you can take your boxing like fighting style and skills outside of just that boxing mini game and take it out into the base game, which is kind of a weird thing, but it's to me like it didn't dampen my enjoyment of it. It's like okay, but I think a lot of people are going to be sharing clips, videos, screenshots of like a lot of the mini games in this game because they're a riot. So I really like that aspect of the game, and I think people will too. And I think it's just all around it feels way better than the first game. It's just such a big improvement overall, and I'm really excited to chat with more people that get their hands on it and give me updates as they're going through with it, because it's a lot of game to process, both narrative and both just like general video game content wise too. And we've only really scratched the surface here, but hopefully it was enough for people to kind of think about as they're either ramping up for the early access or the base release. I think early access is like the 21st, and then what was the like real game version?
Early access, I thought it was the 20th because it was 4 days before. The full game comes out the 24th.
Okay.
But I've seen 20th and 21st. I think 21st, maybe that's European time, but I'm not entirely sure. But I'm really looking forward to this. I guess the worst thing that might come from this, though, is if this game is good and those rumors about Nagoshi and all that leaving, how things are changing in RGG. It's like, oh, this is great. Oh, and Nagoshi's gone. Okay, cool.
I do wonder if Nagoshi is gone and then they can continue, obviously, the Yakuza mainline series, and who knows if Judgment gets a sequel or not, depending on the talent agency. Johnny's
and all
that
that
stuff,
too.
too.
Yeah.
There's so much against like the development side of this game.
Yeah.
But it seems like it came together in the end, which is also double crazy because with the way RGG works, they make these games in like a year, 2 max. So it seems like they probably developed this mostly during the pandemic.
Oh, yeah, I imagine so. And it's even more miraculous that they got a worldwide simultaneous release for this. It is the first RGG studio game that has that, I think.
I guess it sounds like we're wrapping up. I'm not really sure, but I was just going to say, so like they announced that they weren't able to put as much time into making the mouth animations match the English. I mean, did you play in English or Japanese for the voices?
I played in Japanese. I usually play these. So I'm curious to see from people like who play the English and see like how much, if that bothers them or not, like if it's significant enough or not.
I'm going to be playing in English, so I will let you know.
Cool. Yeah, I'm really curious about that. I don't want to go back and turn on English and then like watch cinematics and see like, all right, let's see these lips.
You're like hyper focused on their faces.
Yeah, but I was saying earlier, like I'd be really curious to see if the Nagoshi rumors are true, because presumably they would still continue these because these guys are profitable outside of like if seeing if Judgment continues or not with the whole talent agency and all. But I wonder like if there's no Nagoshi involvement, like what do the games look like? I just want to see what like one of these games with no Nagoshi involvement, what that looks like, and that's really fascinating to me. Like how much did he influence the overall direction of the game, like the feel and just the atmosphere and like and everything. It's a really interesting case study.
I'm really looking forward to playing it. Hopefully that will be on Monday.
Yeah, I'm rooting for it. I can't wait till like we'll have to DM each other a lot and see.
You will certainly be bothered by me heavily. I can't wait.
I want to know.
It's kind of weird because like I'm so used to like release or near release day embargoes that whenever we're talking about a game on this podcast, that is like anyone can be playing it as I listen to this. But for Lost Judgment, it's kind of like we have to, in a week from our recording this is when most people who haven't pre-ordered will be able to play this. So
this is completely unrelated, but do you remember what the embargo was for Yakuza 6?
No.
It was a month ahead of release.
Oh yeah.
Embargo.
Right. Yeah.
That was so weird. Like it was literally one whole month ahead of release. And it's like, that seems kind of weird. Like people are going to read the reviews and then they're going to kind of like forget about it.
Yeah.
It was just weird.
Well, on the opposite end of that, I'm going to use that to segue into the next game we're going to be talking about. And this is something that we've talked about on the podcast like years ago, back on the old rendition of the podcast, because we had a couple people on site that were really big fans of Toby Fox and Undertale, followed by Deltarune, which came out Chapter 1 in 2018. And people have been waiting for, more news on the follow-up Deltarune chapters for years now. And this week we got the surprise drop of Deltarune Chapter 2. And
it came out yesterday.
Yeah. So I'm going to hand this over now to Jess, who has put some time into Deltarune Chapter 2, and I'm not sure if anyone else here also has. Feel free to chime in if you have, or if you've played Chapter 1.
So I wanted to say that Jess, I doubt you're gonna like spoil it, but I kind of want to go in knowing nothing because I still have to catch up with the first one. So I might tab out for this if that's okay.
Right.
Yeah,
obviously,
I haven't played it yet either.
I mean, I was gonna try not to give much on the first one either, just in case people haven't played it. But like, if you wanna, like, I guess I'm not sure what counts as a spoiler too much, but I'm not saying it's any specific events.
I trust.
Everything. Okay.
No, it also kind of works out because I think I have to go get some laundry, but I'm not doing it out of disrespect. I just don't want to know anything about Deltarune because
Deltarune, you spoiled that. Oh my god, I didn't know time.
I know. I'm sorry. There's a second chapter, but because I got super spoiled with Undertale to the point where it ruined my experience.
Oh yeah.
So I've been dodging it like crazy.
Okay,
But
we can always like let you know in the Discord. Well,
just add
when
me.
it's up, when we're on
I'll
the
be
All
next
right,
one.
for listeners, we will obviously timestamp this. Jess, I trust her to avoid talking about explicit spoilers, but if you want to hear absolutely nothing, you can follow the timestamps to get to the next section if you'd like. But
Yeah, go for it, Jess. The stage is yours. Don't feel too pressured from these people. It's like, oh no, I don't want to hear anything. It's like the stage is yours. Talk about what you want to talk about.
All right, gotcha. I feel like honestly, I haven't even made it that far to like reach anything like totally like like really twisted, revealing kind of thing. It's just like chapter 1 did leave off with a cliffhanger, but you find out what happens afterwards and go back to the and then you go back into the dark realm where you left chapter 1, and there's a couple more gameplay elements that they add in. So just for a recap, so there's 3 people that you mainly play as, which is Chris, the protagonist, Ralsei, who is basically the Prince of Light kind of person that lives in the other world, and then Susie, who is Chris's classmate and the person that they visited the world with originally. So those are the 3 that you can play as in this turn-based combat RPG-ish game. Let's see. There's basically when you go back, there's a different things, like you need to recruit monsters. So now if you spare them, you can add them to your town, basically, which is the realm that you visit. So that's like one of the other things where they're saying like you should spare the monsters instead of just kill them. Can't quite say what happens if you kill them, because personally I don't like I haven't done that yet, but well, maybe there's something that happens. Yeah. And then there is apparently some differences if you load the original save file from chapter 1 versus starting chapter 2 immediately. Like there is like you don't need to play chapter 1 actually to play chapter 2. You could start with a completely empty file.
That's interesting. Like I would assume that like you'd want to play chapter 2 right after chapter 1 because obviously just the chapter structure. But is that would people still appreciate chapter 2 without having touched chapter 1? You think?
I think you really should play chapter 1. My guess is that it's for people who played the console versions but didn't play it on PC, so they don't have a save file on PC.
Yeah, this is only for PC right now, right? I think.
Correct.
The chapter 2. Okay. Did they announce a release date for the console release or not yet?
I don't think so. I actually did play through chapter 1 on my PC because I was like, oh dang, I forgot that you can't actually like I played it on the Switch, so I couldn't really get the save file onto my PC. But honestly, it kind of helped for refreshing my memory because there's like all this lore on the kingdom that they're exploring and what happened in the first place to get them there.
Okay.
So the way that Toby Fox described this was you can play chapter 2 without save data from chapter 1 as long as you generally remember what happened story-wise. So it sounds like in terms of story, you definitely want to play them in order, but like the save data transfer is sort of, if you have it, that's good, especially if you really want your choices to carry over. But it's not necessary, which is a good compromise considering that people might having to be playing on a different platform where they don't have access to their save data or something like that.
There's no motion comic where you have to flip through it and make the crucial decisions from chapter 1 and then start chapter 2.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything like that. It's I guess the main thing I noticed is that I mean I'm playing both just because I'm writing guides in it just to see if there's a difference. There's some small Easter eggs that are a difference, but also it is kind of inconvenient because I guess like if you start with an empty inventory, because for example, there's a place where you could fuse items. So you can make it's kind of like a crafting thing where you maybe you could put 2 dark burgers together and make like an entirely new item, like super healing item or like stronger defense armor kind of thing. But because in the save file with no extra items, it's like, dang, I need to go find some new items to fuse together,
Right. It seems like you're really kind of putting yourself in a disadvantage without having to carry over. Kind of reminds me of like I don't know, Mass Effect, Pillars of Eternity does a similar thing where it's like, yeah, you don't have to have the save transfers, but sometimes you wonder if parts of the game are balanced around expecting some base level transfer of items or experience, or even like narrative choices. And by the way, I was looking around to try to answer the question about consoles. So Chapter 1 was available on consoles roughly 3 months after their PC release. So if it's parallel, then Chapter 2 would be available on consoles like maybe by the end of the year. But I guess there's no announced date.
Yeah, I guess there was a message from Toby Fox as well, like talking about the future releases of Deltarune, where the Chapter 2 was free, but because his words were like, everyone's going through a tough time right now, like in the state of the world, understandably, which is not very nice of him to release Chapter 2 for free for everyone. But I think Chapter 3 to 5 they're going to be paid, like you have to pay for them. And I forgot it, if you please double check me on this. Like he said that they'll be available all at the same time, the future chapters, if I remember reading correctly.
I read that secondhand, so
yeah, I'd have to like double check it. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure about that, but I did notice when I started Chapter 2, there's also like I guess there's a chapter select menu, and there were multiple chapters that it looked like there was like many more to come. I didn't realize that perhaps they would all come at once. The Chapter 2 is actually 3 years. It's like, because the first one came out in 2018. That was also when he made the call to build a team to help him with Deltarune. So I'm not sure how that affects progress. Like maybe they're chugging along quite fine, but who knows when all of them will come out then, if it's taken this long for Chapter 2.
Here, I found the comment from Toby. He said originally he had planned to release all the chapters only when they were finished, but honestly, it's been hard for creators and fans who have such a long time without a release, so he changed his mind. His next goal is to complete chapters 3, 4, and 5 for next time. So it sounds like
Nice.
it's not a promise, but it's like his goal is to have all 3 as a paid release to finish out the intended scope of the game.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess it's like there are some people that I know that said they don't want to play Deltarune at all because they want to only play it once it's complete so they can get through all the chapters at once. I guess
we've heard that
that's
sort
actually
of
me.
Oh, really? Yeah, we've heard that sort of opinion.
Like I played Undertale, and I'm interested in Deltarune. It's like I'll just play it when it all comes out. I'm in no hurry.
I feel the same way.
Well, we've heard kind of that opinion on a lot of these episodic releases where people will just rather wait for them to come out, and then we've seen with like the 2 that come to mind are like Hitman and Life is Strange: True Colors, where eventually they kind of drop the episodic thing, which I don't know. It just kind of depends on how your disposition and how you like to enjoy your games. Whether if you want to know everything and be up to date and you're like playing the chapters as they release, or if you more want to just have one single experience with the game, so you just wait for all of them. Just kind of depends on your preference.
I forgot, Jess. How long was the first Deltarune chapter?
Oh, it took me like 5 hours. It really didn't take that long.
Okay.
I think people play through it faster too. It's just like I like to wander around and double read items and things like that.
And do you get a sense that like the Chapter 2 is longer or roughly the same? Like I know you're not done with it, but what do you think?
I think it's about the same because I am working with other people who have already finished one playthrough, so I'm like, all right, it took them last night basically.
Okay. Is it weird to you that like do you still have like the same attachment to these characters? Like do you still like hold like fond memories of like these characters even though it's been so much time since the first one, or did you like do a replay, or are you doing a replay of the first one?
I did do a replay. It's like I guess I don't feel overly attached, but I have enough attachment to them that I'm entertained by them.
Right.
So, like little cheeky responses here and there from your teacher and like all these other things that still amuse me, even though I guess I'm not as attached to them as I was to Undertale after playing, because to be fair, Deltarune is different. It's episodic and not finished, so.
Yeah.
How long was Undertale?
Undertale took me like 10 hours, honestly.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
to
10.
do 2 playthroughs.
So the Deltarune in totality will be a much larger scope once it's all done.
I believe so.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, he already said like the final release of Deltarune is going to cost more than Undertale, so it'll probably go to reflect that as well. So
I guess it would take as much as as long as a AAA RPG then? Like at least 30 hours?
Well, we actually had the
Maybe.
discussion last week where we talked about how some RPGs are 25 hours, and that's brief. Some RPGs are 60, and like depending on the series, that could be brief or long. And then some RPGs are 100-hour monsters. So there is no average, or I guess there is an average, but it's going to have a wide distribution depending on what type of game it is. So
yeah,
Gotcha.
I'm like 20 hours into Rise right now. I finally got my full party. It's like, I guess I'm starting the game now for real this time. This is the classic. Now this is when the game gets good. 20 hours in.
So I have
yeah.
I have a tangent, but like I'm still playing through Pathfinder. I'm not going to talk about it on this podcast other than this comment. I am 33 hours in. I finished like chapter 2 of 6. And then I see on my Steam sidebar, it says, friends who have played recently, someone 107 hours played. And I'm like, oh, Jesus.
Hell
like,
yeah.
So, yeah,
And they're halfway through.
Yeah, some of these games are just monsters. So a 25-hour total RPG, I should play more of those.
Yeah. Do you have anything more to add for Deltarune Chapter 2 for now, Jess?
Particular, it's more of the same. Gameplay is similar to well, it's the same as the chapter 1. There's more, I guess, shops that you could visit, and like I said, with the using item shop, kind of like a bakery thing. There's a place where you could interact with your recruits, like the townspeople, as you recruit them to your town. There's like a little training place where there's challenges you can complete. Just for funsies, I guess. There are rewards, but like I guess they're just for fun. I don't think you need to complete them to move on with the story or anything.
But are those kind of new to chapter 2, the recruiting thing and all that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's cool. Right. That's cool that they're kind of like changing up the formula and adding little different I say
like I mean you can you can still only play as the 3 characters I mentioned, but for recruiting it's just like I guess like to fill in the town. Just so it's like when you spare characters while you're fighting them, they go to your town.
Here's the characters. Do they do anything once you recruit them? Like open a new shop?
I think it's just to talk to them so far, at least.
Hey, that's enough. Sometimes you just want to like hear about the story and world building and things like that. Though my mind immediately goes to like, man, I miss Dark Cloud.
I'm thinking Suikoden.
Not the golf game in Dark Cloud 2?
Yeah, for those who don't understand, Dark Cloud and 2 have a big town building aspect where you like rescue people and buildings and items, and you kind of like reconfigure the town from them. So that's what this recruiting from Deltarune just reminded me of.
You know where this all leading up to, right? Like in the final chapter of this game, you're gonna do something with that town. It's like, oh, you're now gonna sacrifice all the people you recruited to some god or something to get the true ending. Who knows? I don't know.
Oh god, I hope not. I figure it's like suddenly they're just like it's like one of those town sacrifice things from like Higurashi or something.
Yeah. Oh no. Oh man, now that I said it, I might have spoiled the final chapter. All right, the big question, Jess. What year do you think Deltarune will be done?
I don't know. It'd be great if it came out before I was 30.
So we're not going to ask how long that would be, but I'm just going to guess based on 3 years for chapter 2. We just use math. 9 years from now.
Oh my gosh! No. I think it will, because the thing is, like, I'm not sure if they really like I'm kind of confused about if they aren't done with all those chapters yet, because like maybe they just released chapter 2 because it was like because they felt like it. Like maybe they have more done, but they just
I mean you're almost certainly correct. I was just being glib, but I'm guessing they've made significant progress in the other 3, but they kind of just wanted to give the fans something. So chapter 2 was ready and polished up, and here it is. So hopefully it'll only be a year or 2 for the remaining 3.
Yeah. Fast forward to 2030. So Deltarune, pretty cool, huh? Remember that? Still not done.
Oh boy. Well, either way, I would still like I understand people like not playing it if they don't want to yet, but so far so good. I think it still has, there's the humor from Undertale, and the mechanics are interesting. It still has the bullet hell aspect where you need to dodge any enemy projectiles and such. So I think it's even meant for people who played Undertale. So recommend as of right now, but understandable if you don't want to play it until the full thing is out.
We do have another release that I think kind of went under my radar until actually Josh brought it up to me. And this is a game that we did talk about on a previous podcast as a news post when it was first announced. And that was Castlevania Grimoire of Souls. So I'm going to hope I get this
back, baby.
Yeah, it's not dead.
I just got isekai back from the Hell Dimension. All right, cool.
Welcome back.
What I missed?
We learned all about Deltarune and every
we saw
Deltarune.
Yeah,
awesome.
I mean, we actually know how Deltarune ends now, thanks to Jess.
Oh, cool. I'm glad I left.
All right, so I'm trying to like clear the cobwebs in my head. So this is the Castlevania game that originally released as a mobile gacha game in like 2019, got shut down, repurposed into an Apple Arcade gacha stripped out real Castlevania game. I don't know how like judgmental that is.
So, Josh, have you played this?
I have played this.
All right, I am really excited now because I have Apple Arcade to play Fantasian, which I have not done yet, and I'm still paying for it. So, Josh, sell me on why I should keep my Apple Arcade subscription.
Oh, I don't. This is a hard sell, man. I don't know.
All right. No, I trust you. Konami's doing nothing but bangers lately.
Alucard is back, baby.
I love Alucard. Fan of Symphony.
Who doesn't love Alucard? All right.
Literally, I have my mouse over buying another Apple TV. I'm just waiting for the big sell.
Castlevania Grimoire of Souls. This is a side-scrolling Castlevania where you complete stages and try to complete the challenges for them. You initially start out with Alucard.
My credit card number's in. All right.
So it has like your basic mechanics. Like he has the basic attacks. The fun thing about this is like these are brief stages, not like an overworld map or whatever, like how most Castlevanias are when you're like unlocking parts of the castle. Like these are like stage 1-1, stage 1-2, and whatnot. And they're like brief, like 5-10 minute stages where you go through enemies and fight a boss. You find treasure chests. Sometimes you'll find treasure chests in the walls. It's not meat, it's treasure chests. It's just, I don't know about that. And the fun thing that really caught me off guard was this game has an auto attack where you can manually attack with the square button. I'm using a DualShock 4, but if you're like close enough to enemies, it'll just automatically attack on its own. You can
play the game for you then.
I mean, but you need to manually use your skills. So yeah, you have these skills. Like for Alucard, he has like 3 different skills that you can only equip one of them at a time. Like you can do your bat move, where like you'll charge through as a bat. You have your mist form, and then you have the other ones like a wolf form, I think.
Now, is there only auto attack?
I mean, you have your slide attack, where you slide. You have a dash, and then you have your character skill, and then you also have like items that like you can that can drop from stages. Like say like a holy water and whatnot, and then you also have like character specific skills. Like Alucard has like a overhead swing and like a projectile slash attack.
I don't know. This isn't sounding like that good of a sell at all. I'm thinking I shouldn't buy this second.
All right,
TV.
And then everyone thought, oh, they're just stripping out the gacha, right? This game still has a gacha.
Fuck! Why shouldn't be? Oh fuck! I hit the order button. All right. Well,
there you go. Now you're ready. Now you're ready to have 6 different save files to re-roll.
It's okay. I have multiple screens, so I can play Castlevania Grimoire of Souls on all of them.
Ooh, okay.
So I'm gonna embrace the life, the gacha life. But anyway. So I'm looking at videos of this. Kind of looks like shit, but also kind of doesn't. I don't know how to describe this.
Okay, so since it's on Apple Arcade, there's no microtransactions for the gacha currency. You get them through like completing challenges at stage, like defeating all enemies, find all the treasure chests, find the sealed treasure chest, and whatnot. And you're not gotching for the characters; you get them as you progress through the story. So, I tried this out for maybe 2.5 hours. Of like, I'm never touching this again. But by that, I like unlocked Maria. I got Simon and I got Maria, and you equip them with like their different like weapons, like they have elements. So of course you have elemental affinities. Like you want to go to this stage or this element of weapon because you'll do more damage to the enemies. And then you can have like a sub weapon to bump up your stats. You have like you have equipment that you can unlock. Well, for those you gotcha for the equipment, and so there'll be different weapons, different equipment, and then you can upgrade those. This game also has a login bonus. So
I was poking around some of the official websites and some other news coverage of this game, and I read two things that just kind of make me like I don't know, wince or chuckle. One of them is like the marketing where it's like a true action game. Grimoire of Souls is a fully fledged side-scrolling action game. Like they're really trying to sell like that it's that it's the real deal.
Why can't you just?
The thing that really caught me off guard was like I did like maybe. Let's see. I went through stage 1, 4, and then I think I got to like the third like set of stages, and then like I was like, okay, let me go boot up my save file again, just to, like I wanted to see something, and then like it said like 16% complete. I'm like, wait, I'm already 16%, and I barely freaking touched this game.
Well, here's the other thing that made me wince. So the App Store mentions 60 levels, a wide variety of equipment, and here's the kicker: daily and weekly missions. And I'm like, God, it's weird because like I've played like online MMOs and similar sorts of games that have those, but it just seems so weird to read that underneath a Castlevania game. Like,
I think the icing on the cake of this is that if you're like, because I'm watching gameplay of this now, they just fucking reused those old Symphony of the Night portraits. That's
wait, are they?
Like you can clearly tell like there's like no artistic like consistency between the characters.
No.
They're kind of like
shameless.
So like you just have like this old art like Simon when he joins up, and it's like, all right, hi Simon, y'all very rugged. It's really funny, I guess. I think the sad part about this is like you can clearly tell that they have new arrangements of Castlevania music in it, but they all sound bad and flat as well.
Oh, it's just like what?
You can at least reuse the music. If you're reusing the art assets from the base game, at least reuse those arrangements too.
I would honestly argue that the era of Konami we're in right now is way worse than the era of Konami a while back. Because like everyone likes to be like, oh, when Konami was like super evil, they were the worst. But like this is Konami like kind of like barely trying, and it's pathetic. It's
you'd rather go back to 0%.
I'd rather have
effort.
nothing. Yeah, I would rather have no effort. Just be an evil mega corporation. Like this is just don't even.
I take it you're not an Eden Zero fan.
A what?
What did you call him?
What did you just say to me?
Just for context, Konami of all places is making an Eden Zero game RPG, which is it's like the not fairy tale manga.
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah.
Now, when you say a game, we should probably say. Wait, is it actually? I thought it was a mobile game.
There's a mobile and a console game. Konami's going all in.
Da.
So,
wow.
I guess to wrap up this hot new Castlevania game, this is the type of game where you want to quote unquote main a character because you're gonna have to do hours and hours upon grinding of like going through stages and like getting equipment you want. There's also like kind of like the skip ticket system. Like in mobile gacha games where you can kind of do farming that way too. But to do that, you have to like complete the challenges of the stage, and like some of these challenges are really stupid. Like if you like miss like a single bat in a stage, it's like, oh, you didn't get the challenge for defeat all enemies, idiot. It's like, okay. Or like you have to go find all the hidden treasure, or you have to beat it in the time limit, and then you basically just have to like grind for equipment. If you want to go like the route of like not relying on the gacha, for it. Like there are ways to like kind of grind endlessly if you really want to do that to yourself. And it's just
I'm gonna be honest, some of this sounds like just simply at odds with like side scroller RPG, Metroidvania philosophy, just like game design, just like
yeah,
Really okay. I was about to say I'm really looking forward to that rumored Castlevania collection now, but then I'm like, how are they gonna fuck it up?
I hope they don't. There's some good games in that Advanced Collection. I really like Portrait of Ruin.
Oh wait, is Portrait of Ruin?
No,
Oh,
that's
no,
the DS game.
that's DS. I'm thinking
Yeah,
of the Circle of the Moon.
Because
I
James and I
mean-
were talking, and James is pretty strong about Aria being like the best one, and I haven't played that one. I played Symphony and was like, "Wow, this is the best Metroidvania
Yeah, Aria,
I've ever played." And
Yeah,
then I
so-
did not finish one until 10 years later.
Yeah, last year I went through like 4 Castlevania games like back to back. So I played Symphony and then the GBA trilogy, and I am confident that Aria is the best of the
Yeah, I
bunch.
was thinking of Aria. Aria is the one that I really like out of that.
Does it
rumored
have
collection.
good bosses?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's impressive because I love Symphony to death. Those bosses are trash.
Yeah, Aria has better bosses.
Oh,
Just to
good.
lay
All
them
right,
out,
maybe this could be the best one.
advanced trilogy is Circle of the Moon, Harmony of Dissonance, and Aria of Sorrow.
Yep.
And that
Harmony
showed
of
up on a
Dissonance would
ratings
be a-
board a bit back.
Harmony of Dissonance would be a good game if it had better level design and a soundtrack that wasn't just using the original Game Boy sound chip.
Yeah, I think the standouts of that collection are Circle and Aria for sure.
I'd probably get it just for Aria.
So hopefully, if that's true, they don't mess that up. But yeah, that's your hot Castlevania update. I know a lot of people are really clamoring for it, and like, all right, I'm here to deliver the goods.
All right, we do have
Mhm.
one other topic that we wanted to talk about, a new RPG release of sorts, and that is No Kuni II did just either just or is just about to release on Nintendo
it-
Switch.
Came out yesterday as well. So sorry, Deltarune. You probably shouldn't have come out alongside the king of all RPGs, No Kuni II.
Too busy
All
being
right.
the president of the United States.
All right. So I am going to spoil the first 30 minutes if that's a big deal.
We've done this exact same thing, but I want to hear it in your words. This is
Yeah,
definitely
All right. All right. So now I don't consider this a spoiler per se, but just in case. So I'm just going to tell you what happens because I have no idea how I went. When did this game come out? Like 3 or 4 years ago?
17, I want to say.
Oh, I don't like that. That was so long ago because I remember I worked the launch at GameStop. Thank God I never have to work retail again in my life. But okay, so it's funny because on the dock I have been given much less time
Wait, never
than all
mind.
of the other ones. Hmm?
Sorry. I think it wasn't 2017. I think it was 2018.
That sounds about right because 2018 was a pretty unmemorable year for games. And yeah, but okay, so I've been told that the best part of Ni no Kuni 2 is the beginning. I enjoy the game. By the time this goes out, you can actually read my piece on the Switch port because I've been playing that for a couple days now. But okay, so the beginning of this game is probably the most batshit thing I've ever seen in an RPG, and I kind of love how earnestly it doesn't give a shit about what the fuck is happening in this game. So the game opens up, you are this old ass president dude in your limo, and you're driving to unnamed American city. And then within the first, I want to say 10 to 20 seconds, it hard cuts to a nuclear missile going directly towards the city. It hits, killing what has to be millions or billions of people. The explosion ripples to the president's car. Somehow he lives. And as he's like, I guess, dying, the magic sparkles surround him. And then he is instantly isekai'd to this weird cat fantasy world. I guess the world of Ni no Kuni.
Wow, this is better than getting hit by a truck.
Fair enough. But it is so...
Wait, is it?
I mean, it's a better way to. It's like a cooler way to die, I guess. But like, it is so strange because because I would imagine, okay, so did he lose all of his memory? Like, what's going on with this? I don't really know. That was a very bold way to start your RPG. So the first thing because the president
Rated teen,
gets
by the way.
Hmm?
Rated teen, by the way, I think.
Yeah, rated teen begins with millions dying. And then he just shows up in this like the Evan who is unfortunately the protagonist when it really should have been Mr. President dude because it's way more interesting.
Agreed.
He just kind of appears in his bedroom and Evan's freaking out, but I literally forgot his name. What is it? Donovan? Derek?
Roland.
Let's call him Derek. No, let's call him Derek. So Derek shows up in Evan's room. Evan's justifiably freaking out because this man in a business suit just showed up in his room. And then he just starts like, Derek stone-faced. Literally no change. He's like, this is weird. Just walks outside of the room. And then there's like a coup happening with Evan. So they start trying to kill Evan. And as like the little rat goblin knights are about to kill the prince, king, whatever, you just see one of them get shot. And Derek has a gun, full on a Glock, just starts shooting. And he's like, maybe I shouldn't have like showed trigger discipline or something. And he just picks up a sword and starts murdering people. And I'm like, this is the greatest game I've ever played.
So I just want to let you know that I've been like grinning from ear to ear like an idiot through this whole recollection. We've actually talked about this on the podcast before, but that doesn't make this any less like what the
This sounds so random. If you tell me this is
so-
Ni no Kuni, I would never believe it.
I love hearing everyone's version of this, like like everyone's words about like their version of like what happens, right? Because like everybody explains it a little bit differently. It's always funny.
I missed the step where between him pulling out a gun and killing living sentient creatures just instantly, like he goes outside of Evan's room and just starts going on his smartphone. I guess I don't have signal. Oh well. And he just moves on.
Literally me. Obviously.
So what
Like,
I'm doing right now is I'm watching the original trailer for the characters for Roland, who you've called Derek, but his name is Roland.
Derek now.
Derek's a better name.
They just so like blasé, like traveler from another world must help the king. And it's just like,
exactly.
by the way, he just witnessed a nuclear explosion.
Like, no, that's the thing, though. I had my expectations super low because I played a little bit of Ni no Kuni 1, and I was like, this is fine. Honestly, I couldn't get it more than like an hour. I was like, it's whatever. But Ni no Kuni 2 is such a massive improvement and like just nonsense that. Well, let me speak, James. I'm saying Ni no Kuni 2 with that opening grabs you so much harder than the tradition. There's this little boy and he's kind of like, he's got a sick mom and he's about to go on a crazy adventure and it's gonna get a little sad. And this is just like nuclear explosion. Derek's got the Glock, crazy stuff happening. Some girl just died. Doesn't matter. Moving on. Like,
yeah, I will agree. The first half hour of Ni no Kuni 2 is better than Ni no Kuni 1. I will agree with you there.
Like, I will say, the game drops right after that in terms of quality. It's not as interesting, but there are so many, like, I gotta say though, I'm digging it. I'm digging it a lot.
That's good.
The combat is kind of good, like really good. If someone were to, if Derek Glock to my head say what's good about the combat, I wouldn't have a lot to say, but it feels
use the
great.
Glock in combat.
Well, that's the thing. That's the funny thing is he literally just he has his gun and he can just use it whenever he wants. It's great. I was disappointed though. I really feel like they should have like made it a consistent thing that he was the only person with a gun because there are other guns you can get, but they are all like classic, like ye old guns. but still,
Yeah.
it's so funny.
I
That's
just
a hate
find
it
it
too.
hilarious that it's like, okay, so he has a Glock, he can use it in combat. It's like, where the hell is he getting all the bullets?
Magic.
Magic. No, yeah, they explain that actually. They literally explain that. Because anything you equipped on a little bracelet, it'll instantly be refilled. So it's just magic.
I
Which
forgot about that.
I thought that was a neat little detail. I also think it's funny that this world has their own version of like social media.
Well,
Um,
I forgot that was a thing.
Oh my
Yeah,
god, I forgot too.
I
yeah,
forgot so
and-
much about the game.
it's but
It was
something
back in
about
the era where they still do this sometimes, where like there's this. It's like a memories log, or like a story log, or here's what's happened, and it's all in like a Facebook style.
Yeah,
like,
and it's all in Derek's perspective.
self-posting. Yeah,
which is interesting.
right. Kingdom Hearts 3 did that too.
Like it is so funny. If you've ever seen any of those fucking like Sigma male memes on Twitter, that's literally Roland. It is so just like it's so stupid, and I'm having so much fun because the game kind of knows it's dumb, and it doesn't care. It's weirdly earnest. It's just like we're telling the story. It's whatever. But it's enjoyable. And like after playing, because I've been playing a lot of like trails and stuff and like games that kind of take themselves too serious, or like where you can tell that the writers think that they're like the hottest shit ever, but you're kind of like, this isn't going to be a trail shit cast. That's not what I'm trying to say. But every once in a while, I really enjoy playing a game that just doesn't take itself entirely seriously. Like it knows when to, but anytime it is not, this is the set emotional part of the beat where, character death, blah. It's just kind of like the in-betweens or just whatever. They're not like, if you were to look at this in like a very critical lens, No Kuni II is not great, but the port is surprisingly great. It's not, yeah. My pieces, we'll kind of go into that a bit more. I was not expecting much. I'll be honest. Because for Ni no Kuni 1 on Switch, they just ported the PS3 version. Like
that's right.
and it looks good, it plays good, it's great. But Ni no Kuni 2 was a PS4 and PC release.
Yeah.
Like it was but let's not kid ourselves here. The Switch is an underpowered piece of hardware. I love my Switch to death, but most of the time when PS4 games are ported to Switch, it's not good. There have been some pretty tremendous exceptions. Dragon Quest XI S is like that port should nowhere near be as good as it is. But honestly, I think Bandai's kind of been doing pretty well with Switch ports lately. I don't follow them heavily, but
I'm trying to think of the ones that don't do Switch ports great. I think like Compile Heart is usually.
You're right. Their games. There are no reason those games should not run well, because they all look bad anyway. It is impressive how bad those games run. I really feel like they were trying to. They're like, well, we hit our heyday in the Vita era, so let's make all of our Switch ports run like Vita ports. But
that's an insult to the Vita ports that they did, because somehow those ran decently.
I don't remember that, but also I don't play. I don't like playing their games. Like the Dragonstar Varnir port is trash. All the Neptunia ports are trash. Like they're not good at all. So my bar was kind of low. I've been also playing like. I wish I had been on the podcast when it came out so I could have talked about it more, but No More Heroes 3 was one I played recently, and I love that game. Had to take some cuts to the visuals to focus on resolution. I mean, to focus on frame rate. And so what usually when you're playing a Switch game, like a Switch port specifically, but it kind of affects like games in general, is okay, developers usually have to pick between resolution and frame rate. And it's like a scale, and you're trying to get somewhere hopefully in the middle, have it be maybe a bit closer to frame rate because you don't want the frame rate to be too bad. But this one is kind of aiming for the middle. The frame rate is not perfect. It's a lot more solid if you're playing on docked, but I play on my light primarily because a comfy bed, But I was impressed. The visuals look pretty solid. The it's not perfect. The shadow quality is a bit low. Shadows are blocky. Models can also be a bit blocky, but it made sure to keep the Ghibli-esque aesthetic they're trying to go for with these, and it runs well enough. The only time it really gets bad is when you're going to the open world, and then it drops to 15 if you're playing undocked. It's pretty bad, but
in my opinion, there's three
thing.
flavors of Switch ports. I think there's the Switch ports that make the smart compromises to do what they need to be an enjoyable experience, which it sounds like that's what Ni no Kuni mostly does. Then there's the Switch ports that are just kind of like terrible all around. There's no reason to consider them. Like I was looking around and I forgot Mortal Kombat 11 came to Switch and stuff like that, or Sniper Elite.
I'd say the pinnacle of those is has anyone played Blair Witch?
No.
Nope.
Play it on the Switch. It's the worst version by a mile of an already bad game.
And then the last genre of Switch port is kind of I admire the fact that they did this, but I would never want to play it that way. And I'm thinking Witcher 3 or Outer Worlds, where it's I don't know how you managed it, but I don't ever want to play it that way.
Very funny for you to say that, because the only versions of both of those games that I have played were on Switch.
Well, that's why they do it. So that's exactly why they do it.
I'm just thinking that remember when the Steam Deck was unveiled, one of their test game footage was Ni no Kuni 2 randomly.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But it is solid. There are certainly when you're talking about Switch ports, there is always the thing that there's the argument to be made. It's well, if I don't want any compromises, I'm just going to go play it elsewhere. And it's yeah, of course. If you're looking for performance, you're not going on Switch. So reviewing a Switch port is always interesting. I try to keep those compromises in mind. I have a set expectation for Switch games, and it's okay, can I play it? The frame rates will happen, but are they bad enough to truly take me out of the experience? For what it's worth, I say that Neo The World Ends With You is a pretty solid Switch port. It is frame rate drops in battles, but the speed is maintained. I can live with the compromises. And while I don't think Ni no Kuni 2 is an exceptional Switch port, it's
fine.
Better than I expected. Honestly, I did not expect this game to run well on Switch, straight up. And the reason why I think they got it running as good as it was is because they hit up Engine Software to do it. And is anyone here aware of Engine Software?
Vaguely.
I know they've heard of Switch games.
Yeah, they basically just do Switch ports. And honestly, you guys can cut me off at any point and I will not be mad. I'm sorry if I'm going over. I don't know how long I've been talking. But they're really good at Switch conversions. They usually try the best they can with what they have. A lot of the times, if any of their releases, they're not perfect, but usually you can kind of see if some of their releases don't work out, it's probably because the Switch hardware just couldn't do it, or the original code was such a mess. East 9 on Switch. But I always look forward to their output. If I remember correctly, they also were responsible for the PC port of Killer 7. They did the ports for the No More Heroes games. They're good. I appreciate their work, and a lot of my piece is kind of just saying yo, Engine did good job. Bandai Namco, keep giving them work.
I guess they were also involved in some of the NIS America efforts to put Ys and Kiseki on Switch.
Oh yeah. They I don't think they I think that Cold Steel 3 and 4. I mean, I didn't play Cold Steel 4 on Switch. I'm not buying that game a second time. I reviewed Cold Steel 3 on Switch for us, and besides crashes that never got patched, it's okay. That's really it.
So besides the things that completely shut off the game,
Oh yeah, no, that's the thing. If I could go back and rewrite that review, I would not have given it a as high of a score as I did, but we like as we're all writers, we all have reviews we regret. I gave Steins Gate 0 and Zero Time Dilemma a 10 out of 10 when I reviewed them. Always going to I thank you. I'm never going to live that down. But cuz both those games are like 7s, but still. Anyway, like here's the thing. You know, we all have those regrets. I would not have given that game an 8. What I try to do now is when I recover stuff like this, usually I have this optimistic mindset where I'll be like, oh, they'll patch and fix these. Like East 9 got a patch a month after it dropped on Switch. Barely fixed anything. But I think but a lot of that kind of has to do with the fact that Falcom's not good at coding. They certainly try though. But they did good with No Kuni II. They did better than expected. Like if you're expecting a 60 FPS experience, just play on PC or PS4. But if you want to
go in with proper expectations,
exactly. And I have a particular eye for Switch ports. I'm fascinated with them. I love playing them just to kind of observe if they could pull it off. And they did a admirable job.
Yeah, and so it was a lot of times when we get these late ports, like Kuni II on Switch, or often other Switch ports, or sometimes late ports to PC the other way. A lot of times we don't get the chance to really make space for them because we're talking about like new releases. So it was kind of nice kind of to revisit a 2018 game, Kuni II, in this context, and talk a little bit about Switch ports and the teams behind those ports and things like that. So more than happy to make space for it here.
But that's really it for me. I'd love to come on and just talk about weird Switch ports because it's kind of just all I'm fascinated by them. Like it's morbid curiosity every time one gets announced and you go, why is this coming to Switch?
Yeah,
this shouldn't work.
And then people like you say, well, that's how I played Witcher 3 or whatever. Like, oh, that's
and
why.
That's like. Yeah, exactly. Where it's just stuff like that. Honestly, it's really just current gen or even next gen games that just I'm always fascinated. It's like, why did you do this? I'm gonna stick it out, but why did you do this?
Switch is the most 7th gen feeling 8th gen console with how the way that games run.
I'm very impressed. Like, this is like we can move on. But like one of the things I'm really impressed with is Shin Megami Tensei 5 because honestly, I can get now why it took them so long to get that made is because I imagine a lot of it was getting the Switch hardware to do what it needed, well, what they wanted it to do. And from what we've seen, despite maybe some drops here and there, that game looks great.
It has a wonderful art direction and style. That
wonderful art direction. Looks like it runs well. It's like, yeah, obviously, if it was on like PC or PS5, it would look even better, of course. But the fact that I can play like 100-hour Shin Megami Tensei game that looks that good in the comfort of my own bed on any little handheld and just take it over, that's so cool. And
but the Steam Deck, they could.
I already got a Steam Deck ordered.
This is true. But we're gonna have to wait to see if it comes to Steam.
Yeah,
and
I am not.
Probably come down the line.
And like, I know some people are like, "I'll just wait to see if it gets ported." God bless you for having that patience. If a Shin Megami Tensei game is dropping, I'm playing that day zero. I'm not letting anybody spoil me, especially because this is like
before day zero. Knowing Sega Atlas, who knows?
Yeah, but like. There's been a thing with Shin Megami Tensei games where they've never had worldwide releases, really. So usually I get spoiled on everything that happens like months before. So I'm so excited to drop into a Shin Megami Tensei game with no idea what to expect. So nice.
Yeah, it's really cool to see a lot of the. We're still in a paradigm where not everything is day and date, east and west. So it's really cool to see like Lost Judgment and Shin Megami.
It was really bizarre going to Lost Judgment. It's like, oh, this is like I've never played an RGG Studio game that's like actually never been like released anywhere else. This feels weird.
Oh yeah, like same boat. And I'm glad Sega is like focusing on that from now on. I imagine that SMT5 will do good enough, and the Persona games have done good enough where Atlas will probably try to do this as well.
They are really good hard on marketing for SMT5, absurdly.
Which good. Apparently, like at GameStop, it's like the 5th most pre-ordered game they have.
Dang, wow.
There are a lot of games, and as someone who worked that's big. That's huge. That's stacking up to like the AAA titans. But yes, I will stop talking now.
No, it was really. I think we touched on a lot of cool like tangential topics, all seated on the opening of No Kuni II, which I will happily listen to the different recollections of anyone who experiences that because it is something.
I had to YouTube it up.
We should.
I was literally watching the YouTube
all
video
of our
recollections,
like all of the recollections that have happened on the podcast, and then just put them in one video.
Well, we're up to 2, so if we get one more,
okay.
we'll dig around and find them.
Yeah.
Nah, we do have a couple features up on the site that we've alluded to. At least we've alluded to one of them. So we talked a lot at the top of this podcast about Lost Judgment. Obviously, Josh has wrote up his full thoughts in the review up on the site. It's the top cover page right now, so you can go ahead and check that out to get his full detailed critique of it. We do also have another review that went up on the site just yesterday, or potentially the day before. I like how we always say yesterday, like as of the time of recording, and that is for Eastward. So this was the Chucklefish Pixpull game that has shown up in kind of several of the Steam Game Festival things over the last several years. Kind of has that sort of Earthboundy, sort of Gravity Falls sort of feel to it, at least based on the art and animation. So Paige was able to write up a really nice review on that and thought pretty highly of it. So that is available now. It came out last week. And then the other feature that's up on the site is kind of daisy chaining off a discussion that we had on the podcast last week about the new Forspoken trailer that launched with the PlayStation event 2021, whatever they called it. And we all kind of had the takeaway that we weren't really feeling it, that we weren't exactly like sure that it was something we were interested in. And Alex Donaldson basically kind of wrote up a long form version of that opinion, basically wondering, it's still not clear exactly like what you do in this game other than like hurl magic at enemies across a big open field. And then he also did touch on kind of the tonality of that trailer, just not really jiving with him, which is sort of 2 things that we talked about on the podcast last week. So we do have that feature up on the site and the 2 reviews for Lost Judgment and Eastward. So before we go into the headlines of the week, of which there's nothing really major, but there's a number of things just to kind of rattle through. I do believe that we have to say goodbye to Jess, who has another obligation to go to. So thank you, Jess, for hopping on to talk about Deltarune Chapter 2.
Yeah, no problem. It was fun.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll see you next week or later down the line.
Gotcha. Well, see you guys later.
Nope, see you, Jess.
Success.
So there is, as I kind of talked about at the very start of the podcast, there really is no big major announcement for this week. A lot of it is kind of like Tokyo Game Show, hurry up and get here already. Kite actually put up a nice article about the expected streams that we want to see, or sorry, not want to see, will see from the different publishers about RPG and RPG adjacent games that we know will be at the show. So we did already kind of talk about what we expect to see from Square Enix, which basically means no Final Fantasy 16 unless they really surprise us, and it didn't really it didn't show up in their list, so that would really be a curveball. We've talked about Kadokawa Games' Relayer up on the podcast before. We do expect to see Eiyuden Chronicles. This is the kickstarted Suikoden-like that we expect to see at the Tokyo Game Show. He does also call out Project Triangle Strategy, which I already brought up last week as kind of the biggest Square Enix project that I want to see out of the Tokyo Game Show. Shin Megami Tensei 5 will be there. We'll see some of Megaton Musashi, which is the big fighting robot game from Level 5. We expect to see there as well. There's a few other things like that we've also talked about on this podcast, like Lineage W and Blue Reflection Second Light, the new Tales of mobile games, and more Genshin Impact stuff. So it'll be interesting to see like what all the fallout we end up getting out of that showcase in 2 weeks from
new
now.
RPGs to talk about, I imagine, for sure.
So also ahead of Tokyo Game Show, there was a lot of, well, I won't say a lot, a very pointed section of hype for this new Sega game where they announced that they were revealing a new RPG that was going to take place in a fantasy world with a strong focus on basically having narrative deciding choices to make. And we did get a teaser trailer for it, learning that it will be a new RPG for mobile devices showcased at Tokyo Game Show. So we have a teaser trailer.
I have to read, courtesy of Gamatsu, they proposed their translation of the text of the trailer. It is so fucking funny. So the text of the trailer reads, "What is an RPG? But is this really how it should be? Let's take a one-time journey, but not on a straight path. Set off on a one-time journey. Continue your journey as usual. Will they smile or will they grieve? The choices that create the story are entirely up to you. You will undoubtedly discover what it means to play a true RPG." What the fuck?
I haven't played one of those before. Really excited.
Dude, I can't
It sounds like they're sort of taking what is, general common wisdom, like WRPG styles, like choices and what if things don't go the right way. It's like, that's a true RPG.
Apparently, Signoff is not driving with even the domestic Japanese audience, because like the amounts of likes to dislikes on that trailer alone is like, it's like 600 something likes and like 2,300 dislikes.
Oh shit! Wait, why is it so disliked? Because of the mobile aspect?
Also, I think also, so if the mobile aspect of it, there's nothing in the text that I believe says that it's coming to mobile, but I believe the voiceover says smartphone.
Yeah.
So I think there is a contingency of people, even in Japan, where smartphone games are obviously big sellers there. Like they didn't want this game to be a smartphone game, and that's what it seems like it is.
Yeah, it's one of those things that like people like were getting excited for like this. Sega has been on a good roll of like releasing console RPGs, and like when they showed, they're announcing a new RPG in one of the TGS live streams, people were like, they have there's like this leaked or whatever Sakura Wars 25th anniversary logo, and like maybe it's time, to finally fucking get Sakura Wars back on the right track. And there's a certain amount of people on that trend, but also it's just a weird like pitch for this game, initial pitch for this game. It's like, time to show you a true RPG. It's like, and
on your
people,
smartphone.
Yeah, there you go, on your smartphone. So it's still there's still obviously anti-mobile game resentment will continue to be a thing till the end of time, till they no longer exist.
Until mobile games are good.
Yeah. Hey,
well,
man.
I played Fantasian on my phone, and I know that's not completely a phone game, but I think it's getting
Don't
there.
lie, Brian. You played 1/3 of Fantasian on your
That's
phone.
true. I haven't made time. I need to re-up my Apple Arcade subscription. That's what I need to do.
Does Near Reincarnation count?
I think that game, dude.
Sure.
I think
Isn't that event going on right now?
There's an
I need
event
to
going
download that.
There's an event going on right now. There's always multiple events going on.
Oh yeah, I just meant the one with the characters from the remake.
Yeah, from Replicant. Yeah, I don't know. I can't keep up with that game anymore.
I know there was like 3 or 4 concurrent events at one point.
I think that's still a thing. But yeah, anyway, yeah, just this. I'm really, I don't know. I guess we're gonna find out exactly what this is soon. But it's just, I think my favorite thing about this teaser trailer for this true new mobile RPG is I don't know where these leaks or rumors have come from, but my favorite thing that's circling around is like, maybe it's like Hideo Baba's next game. And it's like Sega's working with the Lightworks again, and like this is where the Sakura Kakume team went. I'm like, oh my fucking god, if any of that is true, I'm gonna fucking lose my shit. Oh no.
Yeah, so if you're anyone listening is confused, this game is not titled. It is just Sega's new RPG that they will show at TGS. We'll learn more on October 1st. All we have is this teaser trailer to go off of.
No, you see, I thought that was the title, and I was like, that's a pretty bold title and quite long.
I like it. We have Sega new true RPG, and then like the Sega Mega Game or whatever it was called.
The Super Game, was it?
Super Game.
Hell yeah.
This must be that Super Game they were advertising for all these
I
years.
hope so. On my way.
So the next topic is one that's following up on something that we talked about last week. We got the new story trailer for Monarch, but we had mentioned that it was a Japanese trailer with no subtitles or closed captioning. So you can only, if you don't speak the language, you could only get like the general vibe of what they were showing there, and that there hadn't been anything from NIS America's side. But that's not true. They just now released a new story-centric trailer for English-speaking audiences, and this is the first trailer, as far as I know, that gives us a first glimpse of the dub work in Monarch, which is releasing later this year in Japan and early next year in the West.
This is surprisingly early for like when this game is supposed to be coming out. I'm going to shoot for like maybe like January at the earliest. So the fact that we're getting this like a couple months in advance, that's pretty interesting.
I think it's releasing like this month or next month in Japan, right? Like
if I remember correctly, the Japanese version of this game will have like the English patched into it.
Wait, what?
Yes.
No way.
I remember
that's what
that.
Clouded Leopard Entertainment announced. It's kind of a weird thing where the game is being published by Furyu. It's being developed by Cattle Call. It's being localized into Chinese and releasing at the same time by Clouded Leopard Entertainment. But Clouded Leopard Entertainment also announced, they were the first to announce it, that the game is being localized into English, but that is being patched in later. So in like the Asian announcement, they announced that English is coming. So maybe it's only going into the Asian version and not the Japanese version. I don't quite know, but they announced that, yes, they are going to patch in English. And that was before NIS America actually announced an English version. So it first came English news from Clouded Leopard Entertainment, which is a Chinese company. And then NIS America announced, yes, it is going to have English, but it's coming later.
Now, who here in this call, because this will be my last news story, who here in this call is familiar with the Furyu Jank Zone?
I have
some people think
mention.
Some people think the Alliance Alive is really great. I just think it's okay.
Yeah, I'm used to the Furyu Jank Zone. I'm still trying to get through Caligula Effect Overdose.
I'm going to say something that's probably really mean. Furyu is the type of developer that Idea Factory probably wishes they could be.
Yes, no, you're right. You're absolutely right. I like Furyu. I think they're fun. I like that they kind of just take chances and they shoot for the stars when they only have enough money to maybe get like 10 feet above the air. They're fun. Just Caligula and Caligula Overdose are really jank games that try to do a lot and don't really succeed in most of that. But I always still really like I like developers who just put in the attempt. And what Monarch is kind of like, because Caligula was meant to be a spiritual successor, I think, in a couple ways to the original two Persona games, mainly because it had what's his name? Tadashi. The writer on it.
On like Innocent Sin and whatnot.
Yeah, and Monarch is it's got a bunch of old SMT devs, specifically the ones who worked on like SMT 1, 2, and IF. Yeah. And I don't think it'll be an exact replicant of SMT IF, but I remember when this game got announced, they were literally saying like, yeah, we just wanted to make a game like SMT IF again. And that's the easiest way you can sell me on this, even with the jank I know that will come with this. Caligula 2 comes out in less than a month. Excited for that, and by the time I finish that, we'll basically be going in to Monarch probably. But I think the English localization is solid. I'm surprised this game is getting dubbed when Caligula doesn't. Maybe they have more hope for this one being a success. What do you guys? I mean, what did you guys think of the dub?
I think Caligula didn't do very well on like Metacritic overall. So I think maybe just kind of like, is it worth putting in like the money and effort to do a dub on this? Where maybe Monarch, they have higher hopes for reception.
Yeah, I'm interested. It's definitely trying to do like a modern version of SMTF. Like you can definitely see it. For people who played that game, it's like, oh, okay, that's what they're trying to do. I'm looking forward to it. I'm really interested and curious to see if it's any good or not. I don't know. I don't really know what to. I don't know what I'm expecting out of it. It's such a blank question mark.
Yeah, I am expecting like a really ambitious and cool 7 out of 10. Like, not exactly, of course, but like it's that kind of vibe I get where it's like, and that's a lot of Footy-Use games where there are a lot of issues, there are some flaws, but the good Footy-Use games kind of rise above that by just having a bunch of really neat ideas and some really good soundtracks.
Yeah. The soundtrack for Monarch already is like I'm getting excited for that. There's one thing I'm excited about.
I will still stand by the fact that I think that Lost Dimension is legitimately a great game, and people should play it.
It's not.
I think it's an okay game.
Furyu classic, the duality of man.
Again, the Footy-Use jank dimension is always the best. But that's really the main one. Because I have to leave suddenly. But that's the main one I really wanted to talk about. So I'll probably dip on out.
No, thank you, Colin, for joining to talk to bounce off of Josh for discussing Judgment and Lost Judgment, and then obviously your No Kuni II Switch experience. So
my
it was great to
No
have you
Kuni II mental breakdown. Anyway, you guys have a great rest of your cast, and I will talk to you all later.
Same to you, Colin.
Bye bye.
It is pretty weird and interesting that like just within the next few months, just within months of each other, like you have Caligula 2 and Monarch, or Caligula 2's Western release, and then Monarch shortly after, and then you have SMT5 kind of in the middle in terms of like Western timeline of the release dates. Like it's like you have core SMT, and then you have these two other games from former like SMT and Megaten staff as well. It's just like kind of a weird release schedule that they're so close to each other.
Yeah.
Semi off topic. It's still a little bit weird, I think, that we haven't heard anything of SMT5's like English dub, and it's supposedly going to have one. And maybe they just figured they'll advertise the Japanese version of it. You know, it is a game set in Japan, but you know, you just don't see that very often if that's the case.
Yeah, like I imagine they have to at least show at least one trailer with an English dub, right?
Right.
Well,
Who knows?
So here's something that was a late addition to the cast, outline is what I mean. And that is we had the Final Fantasy XIV live letter 66, I believe, last night. Now, I am not a Final Fantasy XIV player, so I will have to hand this off to either James or Chow. As far as my understanding from as an outsider is that this was kind of like a balance patch adjustment preview for the upcoming Endwalker expansion. So maybe if James, you can just kind of give us like the high level highlight of what they went over during the live letter last night.
There is no high level highlight. They just showed off all of the job changes. They didn't go into the nitty gritty of like the potency changes and every little detail, because by their own admission, it would literally take forever to go into it and be like, oh, well, let's say this one skill that was originally 180 potency is now 170 and stuff like that.
And people get like really hype.
The one root thing I got from the live letter last night, in terms of like through osmosis of people talking about it, was like people are disappointed and mad at what they're doing to Scholar. That's all.
It's not so much what they're doing. It's not so much they're disappointing what they're doing to Scholar. They're disappointing what they're not doing to Scholar.
Okay.
It's getting like absolutely nothing from the notes, so it's probably it.
Basically, so I have not played Scholar. I've the only healer I've played is Astrologian, which has also gotten not really a rework per se, but it's got probably a larger change to it than any of the other healers. Just because they got rid of like half of its, well, not half of its kit, but one of its defining abilities, and they've kind of had to work around that, add some new things. Scholar is basically just the same as before. The only thing they've added is an ability that's an AoE that lets players that are affected by it also move quicker in combat, which is unique in the sense that there's no other abilities in the game outside of like Eureka and Baza that lets you do something like that. But they can't design any like mechanics around it, because then that's basically saying, oh, you need to have a scholar in it. And it doesn't actually make things that much quicker. It doesn't impact your combat speed. It's just your movement speed in combat.
I feel like they
So-
didn't want to do too much with Scholar because they wanted to hype up the new Sage class because it's a new barrier healer, which is also what a Scholar is. So
Yeah, that's part of it, but also I feel like the reason why people are upset with Scholar isn't even so much because of this. It's more like the straw that broke the camel's back. Because at least from what I've seen, is that there is a prevailing kind of feeling, or well, not feeling. There's a prevailing theory that ever since Heaven's Word, where Scholar was kind of OP, that the dev team has been really persistent about making sure that it could never be too out there. And so ever since then, it's kind of been a static class. And whereas other classes have had major changes to them, Scholar, not so much. Like, people are actually fine with major changes because at least it's something new. At least it's something that they can learn, try to learn to get into. And if it doesn't work out, then whatever, at least it's something new. At least there's a chance for things to get better. And while there haven't been as many people outright disappointed with Dark Knight as with Scholar, you're seeing a lot of the same thoughts where you look. I'll be honest with you. I play Dark Knight. I have it at level 80. I watched its abilities reel. I couldn't tell what the fuck was new.
Hmm.
Literally
Well,
everything else, it's pretty easy to tell. Oh, this is different. Like Dragoon, it's got a couple new charge abilities. It's got a few new AoE stuff. It seems to basically, while I can't tell exactly what's happening, I can tell that there are things that are new that are going to have an impact on its rotation. Warrior, I can tell that right off the bat, its gap closer no longer uses meter, which means that it's going to feel much better in the rotation to like actually use it. And it also got Fellas Cleave, so everyone that's a warrior main's having a great time because that's hilarious. Everything else, I don't have every class at level 80, so I can watch these reels and be like, oh, that looks cool, but obviously I haven't played them. Like, I just got the answer to level 80. I can tell there's things that are new, but I can't really tell how that would slot into the combination, the rotation. Gunbreaker, it gets an extra cartridge slot, so that'll have an impact on things, and it has a new ability that uses more than one cartridge slot for an attack. So that'll change things up quite a bit. Paladin, it basically just got unlimited blade works.
Okay, all right, I can understand that.
that got people really hyped.
Yeah. And it's funny because going into this, I was like, you know what? I know Paladin will probably get a lot of changes, but it doesn't really need that many. It feels like it's really in a good spot. And then they start showing it. It's like, oh man, they just completely changed up its magic rotation. Oh god, unlimited blade works. Oh god, again. Why is this a 3-step combo? It's something. But yeah,
Yeah.
like what Chow just posted. It's a lot of fun. Overall, besides Scholar and Dark Knight, I feel like most people are happy with the changes for the most part. Monk has well, there was a joke that was on Twitter that basically said, man, Monk players are, well, no, melee DPS mains are always got it the best because every expansion they get a new job called Monk. It's every expansion. It gets a massive rework because the dev team just doesn't know what to do with the class. Hopefully, this is the one, and people are actually happy with it. It seems like people are feeling positive about what they've seen, but you'll never know until you actually get it, like get your hands on with it. And even like first impressions don't necessarily tell the whole story.
I tried playing Monk, and I can't even tell you what this class is about. Do you just do the same 2 combos, and that's it, and try to get behind the enemy's back? Is that
I've
it?
never used Monk.
Okay, well, I guess there's no other person that can help me here.
Yeah, there's absolutely no other person on earth can help you. You're the only one playing Monk. Yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean, this is all we can do as FF14 outsiders. Like, yep, definitely yes. Things are happening at FF14.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
job rotation, well, the job changes stuff was like one portion of the stream.
Mhm.
The other stuff was, again, there wasn't anything really huge here. It was basically just quality of life changes and some system
I think the thing that they made
changes.
everything happy was using the long range attack doesn't fuck up your combo anymore.
Oh yes,
So-
that's a big deal. Non-combat stuff though, the biggest change they've probably made. Well, they went over exactly what is going to happen when they remove belts and Endwalker, what you can and can't do before patch 6.0. One thing that kind of pissed off, well, it's a good change. I'm not disagreeing with the change, but something that pissed off me and a few other people that just recently got all of our gatherers to level 80 during Shadowbringers is that, so gathering classes also have their own quests. And one of the things that's kind of infamous for them is that they ask you to get high quality versions of some pretty rare stuff that you have to rely on RNG in order to not just get the item in the first place, but hope that it procs high quality. So it's a pain in the ass. You can buff yourself to make the RNG like a little bit more lenient, but it's still been a pain in the ass. It's boring, especially fishing, because they'll ask you to get these high quality fish, these really rare fish that the only way you can get them is by mooching, which means that you have to get a high quality, lower level fish, and then you basically throw it right back in the water to use as bait for the fish that you actually want. Really pain in the ass, really annoying, takes a lot of time. Basically just busy work for the sake of busy work. They're getting rid of high quality gathering items. So that means that everything that I've gone through, everything that my buddy Jason went through, where he just got his gatherers all to level 70, and he's just like, as soon as he heard that, he was like, I'm gonna cry. Because
So
it's like,
basically-
it takes so long.
You've suffered, everyone else must suffer.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
FF14 boomer takes. It's like back in my day,
Uh-huh.
that sort of shit. Well, like I said, it's a good change. It's a good change. But I'm going to be silently judging everyone that levels their gatherers in Endwalker.
That's just like how me and Adam were like when they added manual skill selection in Nocturne HD Remastered. Like, oh, we get it, but back in our day, when SMT was real.
Yeah. Some other stuff. It was funny because the dev team had to explain why they were removing the cap on how much teleportation costs will be, because they're adding new areas. And they're like, okay, so now areas can cost more than 999 gil in order to teleport. And people are like, why? But why do you charge us in the first place? And they said, look, we understand a lot of people here probably haven't played MMOs before, but the reason why we charge a fee on like an MMO standpoint level is to make sure that there is something draining currency out of the ecosystem to keep the economy more stable. And a lot of people just don't understand it. It makes sense, but people just don't understand it.
So the teleporting is kind of like pocket change. I don't think it can like drain the inflation as much compared to other MMOs.
Yeah. They also did kind of go into detail about Ethernet changes, which isn't the same as teleporting. Basically, whenever you're in a city, there's these smaller ether crystals that are part of the Ethernet, and they let you fast travel from different points in a settlement. Before, the UI for it was kind of terrible. It just had a list, and you would have to like outright open up a map of the settlement and look around and be like, okay, that's where it is, or memorize it. Now it's changed where when you open up the Ethernet warp menu, there actually is the map like attached to it. And when you click one and before you confirm, it'll actually show you where exactly you're going to be teleporting to. So very good change. Excellent. No complaints there. Besides that, that's basically all of the major changes, I feel like. But as always, if you guys want a real deep dive on everything, just check out like Tony's work at Nova Crystallis. They always do like
line by line.
Really big write-ups. So I mean, if you're actually a Final Fantasy 14 player, you've probably already read that, or you probably watched the live letter. But if you're just interested in like the nitty-gritty stuff of a game that you don't even play, that's an option.
We did get a couple of smaller game announcements, or air quotes announcements, this week. The first one is actually another one of the famous Australian Classification Board leaks. So we got an Australian Classification Board listing for this is a bit of a surprise, Atelier Sophie 2, The Alchemist of the Mysterious Dream. So this is after, obviously, Ryza 2 was the first sequel to have the same Alchemist in the title. Now we're kind of going
At
back
least the
to
first sequel in a long time.
Oh yeah, because you might need to go back to like
Yes,
the earliest
PlayStation
ones.
era.
Yeah, but like Atelier Sophie is part of the, I hope I get this right, the Mysterious trilogy, which then already kind of folded into like the other alchemists in that trilogy. But now it seems like with this listing of Atelier Sophie 2, that they're going to revisit that to make a direct sequel for Atelier Sophie. So kind of a bit of a surprise. Obviously, since this is not an announcement, we don't have any details involving this. Just the fact that it showed up on the Australian Classification Board. So it'll be interesting to see, like, we're revisiting that Mysterious trilogy, which we thought was, to my knowledge, done and dusted, but apparently not. They're gonna go back to that well and just, because people like those games and have a high opinion of them, and maybe the series is in a no.
I would actually say that the Mysterious trilogy is probably a bit of a black sheep of the recent Atelier games, because like the people that like the Arlen trilogy, they like it because of like the strict time limit stuff, the very heavy focus on the actual alchemy. Dust trilogy, people aren't super hot on Shally, but a lot of people like Aisha and Eskin and Logi. Not too many people are happy with the Mysterious stuff because it's kind of uneven all over the place, at least from what I've seen.
Okay, what reminded was the Mysterious trilogy. That was
Sophie, Furus, Lydian Swell.
Well,
right?
What was the second one?
Furus.
Oh yeah, Furus. Okay, yeah, okay.
I'm still sort of surprised I didn't translate that as Phyllis, because Phyllis is like a real name, and Furus is like sure.
Wasn't like the scope of that game was like a lot bigger and it was like full of bugs. I just remember like that game wasn't really well received when it came out.
I think people do like Sophie to some extent, at least as a character. But yeah, I have not heard great things about either Atelier Furus or Atelier Lydian Swell, which is the one with the twins.
Yeah, I will say that this news, while it did surprise me when I first saw the classification stuff, when you consider what changes they made to the Mysterious DX ports, specifically Sophie, where they added in a new kind of scenario to it, makes a bit more sense. I haven't played it, but now it seems like, oh, that was probably tying into a potential sequel. Which
wasn't the new scenario just like a new? I thought it was like a new painting for the Lydian Swell. That was because they're like going to paintings. I guess I haven't played it either. And one of them was based off of Atelier Nelk or whatever they called that game, which was the town building spin-off.
Let me double check, but either way, yeah.
Well, anyways, I have to imagine that Atelier Sophie 2, it's either like an interquill in a way where it's, after Atelier Sophie, there's a new adventure she goes on, but it's still before the events of Atelier Furus, right? Or maybe it's actually a fourth game in the series where you're playing as literally adult Sophie several years later after several games.
Reading the Atelier Sophie DX Steam page, it says, what makes it DX? New episode of Sophie's growth and a new costume that will help her follow in her grandmother's steps. So yeah, there is an additional something in Sophie DX, which I guess does kind of tie it in.
All right, Atelier Sophie DX fans, listeners, well, let us know in the comments. We're like three blind mice trying to talk about it.
That was kind of a weird port in general because it came to PC and Switch, but two of those games were already on Switch and PC of that trilogy, so they kind of just got replaced. That was Furus and Lydian Swell. And then Sophie didn't have a Switch port before, if I remember correctly. So this is its first Switch port.
Oh right,
it was a little awkward.
Reading the Sophie DX Steam reviews, I forgot about this, but apparently it actually had a visual downgrade because it's based off of the new Switch version.
Oh yeah, on the PC version, the PC version in the original is based off of a PlayStation game, and now it's based off of a Switch game. It's weird, kind of like Dragon Quest. Where the Dragon Quest 11 version you get on PC now is basically a Switch port, where before it was a PS4 port. So it looks different anyway.
So
The
this will
original
probably
version
be
looked better, yeah.
So this will probably be the surprise announcement in that Koei Tecmo TGS live stream block.
It is
Yeah.
possible they might announce. Sometimes what they do is they like announce it ahead of time, and then like more details will come in our stream. So it may not be announced at the stream, but they'll go into detail there. Who knows? I should also mention very briefly that I don't think we mentioned this, but like Atelier Ryza 2 was also leaked like a year ago before it was announced on this exact same ratings board. So there's precedent for this.
I have to say that this, well, not announcement yet, but when it does happen, it's a matter of time, not if, when. It's exciting for me because when I played through Ryza 2, I really enjoyed it, and my one takeaway was, man, what could they do if they had more time to work on a Ryza 3? And it's like, man, it seems like that might be the case because it's clear that there's like segments of Gus that work on different titles. That's the only way that releasing multiple games in a single year makes sense. So if the Ryza team or whatever they call themselves are working on Ryza 3 and giving themselves a longer dev cycle time, that's like really cool because Ryza 2 is already like still one of my favorite games of the year so far. And I'd love to see what they could do with like more budget, more time, that sort of deal.
While we're talking about Gust, we did get another like info drop for a game that we've talked about many, probably too many times. And that's the Blue Reflection Second Light, along with the upcoming anime and mobile game whose names I can't remember right now, to be honest.
This is actually the most. This is actually kind of the most like the smallest info drop yet. Like we're really getting to a drip feed here. It basically just revealed 2 new characters, like. And these are like the 7th and 8th NPCs or whatever, just like 2 more characters are in the game. And one of them at least is from the anime. So we've talked about before how it's just like, they're crossing over from the anime stuff.
Yeah, Uta is like an antagonist in the anime. The other one they revealed was it Kirara. She's like at the yet to be released mobile game. So to me, like, I'm curious because I follow the anime, but there's still like I would pick up this game if they put my favorite character in the anime in it, and but she's not like one of the magical girls, so I don't know if she's gonna be in. But I would pick up this game if they put my favorite character in.
Yeah, so I think we've already kind of talked Blue Reflection Second Light to death. So it comes out in a little over a month in Japan and 2 months for the West. So seems like if you want to get the full picture, you have to dabble in the 3 different things. So
yeah, sorry guys.
Yeah, your homework assignment.
He's gonna review the game and be like, this character isn't introduced, but they don't like do anything, and they're not well established, and I have no idea who they are. It's like, it's because you didn't watch the anime. Duh.
Don't tell. Are you going to tell the people I'm going to review this game without watching the anime? Is that really what you're going to tell Blue Reflection?
Yeah. Side note, disclaimer: I never watched the anime.
Wow! Holy shit! How can I trust you that? I only read it Blue Reflection reviews from qualified game reviewers.
They didn't say qualified anime watchers.
So we do have a couple other small announcements, and these are actual announcements that appeared this week. So this one is a game that I don't think any of us here can speak to at all because it's a bit out of left field. I'm just going to blurt it out because I have no idea how to like lead into this. THQ Nordic had a little bit of a presentation a couple days ago, and one of the games they announced was Jagged Alliance 3. Does anyone here know anything about these games?
Absolutely nothing.
They're freaking. The first 2 released like 10 billion years ago, and like I remember playing them, but I don't know if I beat them.
Surprised.
But they're basically like tactical strategy games. I don't remember them being like having RPG systems in the first 2 at least.
They specifically mentioned for Jagged Alliance 3 that it has RPG mechanics, and I haven't played these games, but it sounded like that was sort of, this is a new thing. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, because to me the game that like I most like relate them to is like sort of like Company of Heroes, So it's not quite an RTS, but it has that sort of interface. So like when I saw like Jagged Alliance 3, like the few gameplay video clips they showed, like it looks a lot more XCOM-y to me in terms of presentation. So like when they're like hiding behind like half cover, it actually like show like, oh, this will only cover you like halfway. It's not like quote unquote full cover in XCOM terms. But like it's been a really long time since like I played any of these. I don't know if they even run on modern systems anymore. If you have to like download some
Mod the
Just
hell
for
out of it.
reference, Jagged Alliance 1, I think, came out in like 1994 or something like that. And then Jagged Alliance 2 came out in 1999. So it's been like 20 years since the first version of Jagged Alliance 2. It got like a re-release and then some expansions that are more recent, but it's been a while since it's like a new numbered entry.
More
in the
recent,
series.
as in like mid-aughts, like 15 years ago.
No, there
Really?
was a Jagged Alliance like in 2018 that was like a weird spin-off. It was like Rage, Jagged Alliance Rage, and a few other. I think there was one in like 2013, but yeah, it's so. I think there's a certain set of people where this is a hype announcement where it's like, oh yeah, I played a ton of Jagged Alliance 2 20 years ago. I'm excited for 3.
I think the most enticing thing about this is there's a bullet point for it that says experience the campaign with friends in online co-op mode. Which is, online co-op RPGs are like there's not
Rare.
a lot of them. Yeah, and like the gameplay of this game is like if it's like the Jagged Alliance that I remember, it's like kind of well suited for it. So that's what I mean. Tales of Arise doesn't have co-op, so gotta go to the next.
Jagged Alliance doing what
Right,
Tales of Arise doesn't.
That's right.
Yeah, but it looks very XCOM-y. Looks, I don't know, very, very strategic. It's from the developers of Tropico, so that kind of checks out. No release date or window at all, just the initial announcement. And the initial announcement, at least it does seem to show like, I don't know if it's pure gameplay or like mock gameplay, but it does actually show a bit of it, which is kind of cool. So
It's not just like a cinematic, teaser.
Yeah, so this might be just a fun co-op game in general. If it pans out, that'd be awesome.
And the other game that was announced this week was Astris, which is a game for mobile devices from the developer of Arknights. And I know Arknights is a
Arknights,
game.
Isn't it?
Is it Arknights?
I always pronounce it Arknight. I don't know if the K is like
it's Arknights, yeah.
Oh, Arknight. I do know that in our Discord, plug in the Discord, that we do have a population of people who are really big into Arknights. So this is a new teaser announcement trailer for a new project from that studio, Hypogryph, for Astris. There's an announcement trailer, and then there's like some pre-alpha gameplay. There is no release date on this at all. It's described as a premium game, so I guess they're trying to divorce themselves from being a gacha game or whatever. A turn-based 3D RPG where a protagonist from Earth is assigned to a faraway planet for an investigation of the Xeno civilization. Blah, 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 blah. So it seems like they're trying to set this up as like more of a console-ish RPG experience and less like an Arknights gacha sort of setup for it. So
yeah, I'm just saying that's interesting that like, they're actually like, there's not a lot of like mobile devs that have dipped into gacha games. Like, oh yeah, our next game is like something you pay for up front. It's not another gacha game, so that's interesting. I was skimming through like the gameplay trailer of it. It's it's early, like the environments look pretty and neat and like very clean. It definitely has like a certain type of tone, but a lot of the character models animation seems very early.
Stiff,
so
yeah.
I'm interested to see where this goes. I hope it turns out well. I would like to encourage more mobile gacha devs that are very like purely talented, but like at least go the route of like having like a premium mobile game, like have something to like let people pay upfront and like see. I want to see like a proper structured like console-esque game would look like from them, instead of like, oh, we're pumping out limited time events and like login bonuses,
dailies and
like,
weeklies.
Weeklies,
No, actually,
and like Arknights is a really like a unique game in that space because it's like a tower defense game that like obviously has gacha systems, but it has really deep mechanics for that type of game. Like you basically have like these different kinds of operators and characters. Like they specialize like long range healing, suppression type things. So you have like waves of enemies. You have to like position them in a way where they don't like none of those enemies like breach your defenses and whatnot. So it is a really cool, unique game in that space. But like it is still a gacha game where like you're building up these characters with like different rarities, and like it's a big time commitment, time sink, and for some people a big money sink as well, depending on how hard they really want to get characters.
I do want to read through the trailer description because there was one bit that I missed initially. Here's the description. Go through the storm, transcend eternity. Dear traveler, enjoy your journey. Astris, the first premium game presented by Hypergriff, reveals an exploration of episodic narrative and 3D RPG gameplay. So, kind of bringing it full circle. I guess they call it a premium game in one sentence, and then episodic narrative in the other. So maybe those two things aren't mutually exclusive, but it does
Maybe
seem
it's
like it'll.
Ever Crisis like that. I don't think I see Ever Crisis thing when they announced that it'll be. I forgot if it's free, but it is episodically natured, where like they'll add on more content. I don't know.
So yep, no details on dates or anything like that. Just the first announcement, some initial gameplay. If you're a fan of Arknights, maybe you'll go check it out. I do like how some of the comments on the trailer are like, "Is this where our Arknights money is going? I'm hyped for it," or whatever. So maybe.
It's a very, very dedicated crowd.
A couple updates to existing games that have released in the last couple of months. This first one is actually kind of really good news, to be honest. Tales of Arise, which has been out for a little over a week, has surpassed 1 million shipments and digital sales, which is the fastest ever for the series. We did also get updates that Berseria has surpassed 2 million, and Vesperia is just shy of 3 million at 2.88. So it seems like Tales of Arise is kind of a shot in the arm for the series. It's the fastest selling so far. I don't know. It seems like just really good news in general. I don't know how you can look at this and feel anything else, anything otherwise.
Yeah, it's worldwide simultaneously. That definitely helped, and it seems like the reception from fans internationally, like they're generally positive on it. They're like, yeah, this is pretty good.
It also has. They also noted they have it has obviously dual audio, but also like 11 different text translations as well.
Right.
So really a worldwide release.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Yeah. AAA Tales of is here to stay.
Probably.
Oh, so is the mobile gacha games. They're here to stay too.
Those are also here to stay. Like he literally said that. I think we mentioned this before, but Tomizawa basically did an interview with Famitsu. He did say, this is probably what's actually more interesting to our audience, is they're going to do more remasters and remakes, but also like we're going to keep doing these mobile games. Like they are quite literally here to stay. So
we're gonna pump out as many of them as we can.
Every other year. I don't know.
Every other. Imagine like by the year 2030, it's like what 10 running Tales mobile games. Like,
yeah. If they pay for a rise, then I'm all for it. We also got an update for a game that was kind of a mainstay of the podcast a couple months ago. A new patch for Scarlet Nexus. So we did talk a little bit about some new DLC that they're getting, like extended character episodes and things like that. Well, this patch version 1.03 is focusing more on gameplay and like accessibility. The two main things here is a kind of an adjustment to how the attack animations work in terms of like whether or not the aim assist will have you target your enemies or not, which I know is actually something that Cullen actually pointed out in his review, that he felt like it felt a little like loose in terms of like getting your attacks to land while airborne and things like that. They also talked about being able to adjust the camera distance near and far, some larger font sizes, because the font, I play at a monitor, so I didn't really have an issue, but if you're playing on TV, it could be like really, really tiny. The ability to skip the SAS animations, those are the animations of your allies when you invoke their powers. So just seems like a really nice kind of follow-up, to a game that seems like it has done well for Bandai, despite some of the initial concerns about it potentially underperforming. So that's the free update. The paid DLC for the costumes, weapons, and Bond episodes is also
they haven't
not
given
out
any
yet.
details on like pricing or dates on those. Just it's coming, which is maybe they decided after the fact that they're going to do DLC and now they actually have to make it. So I mean, just rather than the alternative where they just like sell it after the fact just because they can.
We did also get an update for Fantasian, and this was something that I think Josh actually pointed out, where you had finished the game, tried to get into a certain location, only to be introduced by a message basically saying, like, please...
Did Josh finish the game, or was it James?
It was me.
It was James. For some reason, I thought it was Josh.
Josh always gets...
I wrote
say that he did everything.
No, I know you.
Josh gets all the credit.
I know you had played it, but I thought...
Well,
no,
has Josh even played part 2 yet?
I played a little bit, but then I stopped because real life happened. So
no, I legitimately thought it was something that Josh brought up, but no, I guess it was James. My memory's failing me. Where he tried to go into a specific location, only to be introduced by message saying like check back with a future update.
I never got confused because I brought that up because I think I was speaking with someone who did like mention that like, oh, like the full game's not even here yet because they got there and it's like, oh, more content is to come and whatnot. So
anyways, let's get into the actual what the announcement was. So Fantasian update version 2.5.0, adding the post game dungeon that people had kind of come across and realized wasn't as part of the game yet, and then also introducing New Game Plus. So the post game update is the Void Realm. The press release kind of goes into detail on like how many floors, like how the dungeon is set up, things like that, and then how the New Game Plus works, how you access it, what carries over, and things like that. So
is there like still a story after the game's over? Is it kind of like was it like the Xenoblade Definitive Edition kind of thing?
No, I assume it's mostly just a post game, just like challenge, like battle only arena sort of thing. Is my guess.
I don't know because the little video they used to show like kind of detail it and like who the main boss of the post game dungeon is. There might be some story stuff there. It won't be like crucial or anything, but there might be something.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll have like a little thin story to go with it. But
that being said, I am not going back to it.
if you're a masochist and really want to challenge yourself even further on a really demanding game, because I know you've been playing through it now, Adam, and yeah, it's something, isn't it?
I mentioned this on Twitter. Fantasian is surprisingly just long. It's longer than Tales of Arise. It's longer than Lost Judgment. It's longer than Scarlet Nexus, Nier, East 9, Persona 5 Strikers. It's longer than all of those. It's a pretty long game, which is sort of weird. It's like not what I would expect, for like a mobile RPG. But
is it longer than
a lot
Pathfinder?
To do. It's probably not longer than Pathfinder. Okay.
I win or lose.
I like that's the standard now. Is it longer than Pathfinder though? Can it run Crisis?
All right, we do have a couple release dates here. So here's an indie game. A lot of times we don't always give indie games kind of like their spot on stage, but this one we're going to go ahead and do it. So pixel art action RPG Unsighted from developer Studio Pixel Punk, published by Humble Games, is releasing on September 30th for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC. So this kind of looks like almost like a mystery dungeon sort of game, or maybe like more of a top-down sort of Metroidvania with obviously a pixel art style as described in the header. We do have a cool release date trailer linked up on the site, and I don't know, it just seems like it's got an interesting art style, kind of got an interesting take on the. Go ahead.
I remember seeing like a bit about this game. I don't remember exactly what about the development team, but I believe it's like a South American developer or something.
Let me check.
That's kind of cool.
It did show up at E3. I forget. Was it on the it could have been maybe on one of the Nintendo showcases. Yeah, Brazilian game studio. So
yep.
So always cool to see
That's
that.
Cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's got a cool like pixel art style. It's very flashy. It sort of reminds me of something like Hyper Light Drifter, only it's more detailed and less. It's not quite so minimalistic kind of pixel style, but action RPG pixels. I'm interested in it just as an indie action pixel. I like pixel art. So
yeah, it's cool that like I just recently reviewed Dodgeball Academia, and that was from another Brazilian indie studio as well. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, as soon as you say Hyper Light Drifter, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the better comparison. Yeah, it's not the same, but it's a really good kind of setting the stage of what you think what it looks like.
Yeah, it's always cool to see developers from like less represented countries in the industry like pop up. It's really cool to see stuff, and it's like you never know what you'll get because like Valhalla also came from South America. It was Venezuela, wasn't it? I think
so.
Yeah, and obviously a ton of people love Valhalla, and they're supposedly.
You mean Valheim? Or wait, what game is this?
Valhalla. The bartender. That bartender.
Oh, that game. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah.
I was thinking like Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Like this is from like 12 different Ubisoft studios.
That's from Ubisoft, so it's just from the world.
Yeah.
Oh no, spellings for common names now.
You mean VA11 dash whatever?
Let's not hurt ourselves.
Another September 30th release date, and that is for the Death's Gambit Afterlife, which is kind of like the big gold edition repackaging of Death's Gambit that was announced back in July, where they
Josh played this.
I played.
Do you remember it?
The base version? Yeah, I remember it. I remember not really. Yeah, it was okay. It was okay. I remember it. But this is supposedly like the new and improved version of that game, like overhauling like a ton of systems and whatnot. I don't know if I'll go back to it, to be honest. Like the base game was like it's. I don't know if I would be interested enough like to go back to it because like it's kind of it was whatever for me, and I think I'll keep it like that.
Yeah, and like supposedly it's going to have like twice as much content, a really huge overhaul, big expansion for it. So it's September 30th for Switch and PC, and then additional platforms at a later date. I guess another double check. Correct me if I'm wrong, James, but another September 30th release of sorts is The Legend of Heroes Kuro no Kiseki, obviously in Japan only. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yes,
So-
it is.
It's like, man, lots of RPGs coming out on September 30th. At least 2 of them. If you can't read Japanese, you'll be able to play. But Kuro is fast approaching. Still not up yet, but I will have my impressions for Hajimari up probably next week, I would imagine. Hopefully. Just gotta wait for boss dude Alex to actually like look over it. But
Yeah,
Anyways.
but so obviously as we lead up to the Japanese launch of Kuro no Kiseki, which will be years before we see it over here, thanks to NIS going into the crossbow games, then Revelry, whatever they decided to call
Reverie,
Hajimari,
Goes into Reverie.
and then we'll see Kuro, which doesn't have an official title yet in English. After that, so looking at 3-4 years before we see it, unless you're impatient like James, in which case you only have to wait a couple more weeks.
Yeah,
They did.
as well. I'm heavily considering it more and more now. The closer it gets.
Josh,
did-
no, you gotta play Hajimari first.
No, I already know everything about Hajima. Okay.
They did release what the opening movie of the game is, which a lot of people are excited about. It uses the 3D character models rather than like an animated like 2D images that Falcom has used before, and I think the fidelity is high enough now that it works pretty well. So I think the actual composition of the opening is kind of like generic. Like think of your favorite anime or JRPG opening and change the characters out. And I think this is kind of like
That's
the rest
not
of them.
fair. My favorite anime opening is Baka now.
When you think about like the technological progression they've done with like the Trails series openings, like in the Sky ones, they kind of had like anime stills with a really nice song over them, but they were like
I actually really like the sort of stylized stills.
yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
Didn't they did that in Hajimari with the 3D character models as their opening?
They did.
They did.
Yeah, so this isn't anything new.
Yeah, this isn't anything, but it's on their new engine though, and their new graphical engine, which is it looks way better.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, and then they started like the kind of the not the Flash Java like moving anime puppetry thing they did in. I think they
Yeah.
started that in when did they start that? Was it Crossbell? They started that.
I don't know if it was Crossbell, but
I think they did. It was definitely it's kind of like the puppetry almost of like.
I think it was
anime
East Memories
portrait.
of Salsetta that they kind of did
Oh
that.
yeah. And then they started, and they did, and then starting with Trails of Cold Steel 3, they started going full 2D anime openings. It was kind of like,
It's just kind of bled to me, you know.
They kind of started that with Ys 8.
Is it Ys 8? Oh, okay.
Ys 8 has them too.
Yeah. And now now doing full engine, in-game engine now, but they're new. So yeah.
But anyways, opening movie, they also have a Falcom 40th anniversary DLC set for
Happy 40-year anniversary, Falcom.
yeah, the one it's a bunch of like costumes. The one that everyone's talking about is a swimsuit for Agnes because it's just awkward because there's like some people that are like getting really, really creepy about it, and then there's other people that are getting angry at people for saying, I know it's just a bikini, but that's not the reason why Falcom made this.
And they've got some other costumes in there as well.
It is standard Falcom DLC, unfortunately, these days.
Oh,
You
they
know,
don't
hey,
sell, so
Yeah, it's just like free. I won't say free money, but like release a swimsuit set, let people know about it before the game releases. It's just extra income for them. So like at this point,
Yeah.
you're turning away money if you don't do that. I suppose that's just where the
I
audience
mean,
is.
yeah, this is
So I
definitely like
will say that Vaughn's swimsuit, looking at it's actually really nice. It's really kind of cute. But
so yeah, there's definitely to drive sales because it's going to be only available for unlimited time from September 30th to October 31st. So they're basically like, hey, you better get this game early. You don't want to miss out on these.
Well, I
So,
just
yeah,
go
that's-
back to my like mindset when I played. I haven't played Cold Steel 4 yet, but when I played 3, like I never bothered with any of the alternate colors that you unlock, or same with East 9 or Scarlet Nexus. I never bothered with any of the attachments. Like that's just not something that interests me. Like I just could not care. Like I'll just go with the
I
default
actually kind of
costumes.
liked in Tales of Arise that I think it is like an Ultimate Edition costume set, so it is optional, but you can buy like each character has like a unique bespoke costume for each character. And I actually saw like a lot of reviewers like in their screenshots wearing them. It's just kind of cool to have like an alternate character design rather than just a swimsuit or a school outfit or like, you know, some like themed thing. Like, no, here's just like an alternate character design for Elfin, and here's just you know, here's Rinwell in, you know, it's like a mage costume that's kind of got like an owl theme to it because, you know, she's got Hootle. And like, I put that one on because I just like, you know, it's kind of cool to just have like an alternate design rather than just, you know, some themed thing or a swimsuit or whatever. So that was kind of cool.
for me. That's why I don't use it.
Unfortunately, Bamco made the fucking apocalyptic sin of gating arts to DLC as well. So, you know,
Oh yeah, they did do that.
I was just like, okay, well, like no one actually knew that until like the rubber met the road. It's like, oh, weird. Okay. So it sucks. It sucks. People shouldn't have to do that.
And I kind of wish George was on the cast today for this one, but he's not. So someone will have to pretend to be like really passionate about this. But Dying Light 2 Stay Human has been delayed until February 4th of next year. So
No, I can
no.
take the L's this year after Biomutant and
No, no.
Gotham Knights.
But I want a parkour. I want a parkour.
This game is weird. Like it was like originally billed as sort of this open world. They called it an RPG-ish thing where first of all, it was really like written by Chris Avallone, who is now his name is Poison. So like they mixed that. I mean, his contributions are still there, but like it was supposed to have a lot of like choice and consequence, like ever evolving world, and everything you do will change everything else. And it seems like they ran into a lot of problems with that in terms of, you know, that's just so many permutations of choices and how it changes things. And then when they re-revealed it and they're like now ramping up to release, they're really heavily focusing on the parkour element of it. Okay, that's
we have a breaking news update from George out on the field. He's coping with this. He just tweeted out right now at this very moment, Nickelodeon All Stars Game of the Year. So that's his next thing he's clinging on to right now.
Oh man, I can't wait to see him join the Nickelodeon Smash Clone competitive scene.
He better like.
He's got to get an Ethernet cable before he does that.
He doesn't even recognize like 80% of the cast. He's young. He doesn't recognize fucking Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah, like who is Cat Dog?
Who's Powder Toast Man? Come on now, I don't buy it.
But yeah, Dying Light 2. If I'm on the Steam page for it right now, like how do they describe this game? And it's just like vast open world. Participate in the life of a city engulfed in a dark new era. Discover different paths and hidden passages as you explore its multiple levels. Creative and brutal combat, day and night cycle, choice and consequence. So there's still some of that.
Feels very kitchen sink to me. I don't know. Combat, parkour, dialogue. I don't know. What else do people like these days?
I actually didn't know this. It says 2 to 4 player co-op. Play in up to 4 player co-op.
What genre do they have
any sort of
on it?
Yeah, I know 2 player.
Here are the genres. Zombies, open world, action, co-op, parkour. Not an RPG. Actually, RPG is like 8. No, actually, more like 11.
All right,
tags down.
This is how we're gonna start deciding which RPGs we cover for the site, depending on how far down the RPG tag is on their Steam page.
But on the actual store page, it says Action RPG.
Oh.
But it's just not in the
Wait, it
user
does?
generated tags. Yeah, if you scroll down to like near the ESRB rating, action RPG.
Oh, okay.
Do we trust the fans or the store description? Oh no. I think the fans might be right here.
We'll just have to go with we'll have to reconvene with George next spring, and he'll give us the declarative statement. He'll have final say.
The how RPG is it meter.
Yes. But that basically covers it for the podcast. So lots of little bit news, lots of really cool discussion about some recent game releases like Lost Judgment and Deltarune, and maybe stuff that's less interesting like Castlevania. And it's always good to revisit Ni no Kuni. We've got the 2 reviews and the Forspoken feature up on the site. And then obviously we will follow through on anything and everything that comes out of Tokyo Game Show from any of the publishers that we mentioned and all that stuff. So you can always visit us at our website at rpgsite.net. We're on Twitter at rpgsite. You can also find us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. You can join our Discord channel if you want to talk about Arknights or Tales of Arise or any other recent RPG that you're interested in discussing. And we will be back next week with another episode of this podcast. So next week will be another holding pattern for TGS, but then the week after should be the big one. So look forward to that. But until then, stay safe, take care, and we'll talk to you next time.
Alucard.
You forgot when he was taking that Japanese identity, Genya Arigato?
So that's the main character of the game, of the gacha. You're Arikado, and then you go into Grimoires and you become Alucard. That's what it is.